Sue, will you call the roll?
Here.
Regent Crane?
Here.
Regent Danae Davis?
Here.
Regent Stan Davis? Regent Drew?
Here.
Regent Evers? Regent Galba? Regent Loftus? Regent Loftus? Regent Pruitt?
Here.
Regent Smith?
Here.
Regent Spector? Regent Vasquez? Regent Walsh? Regent Wingate?
Here.
Regent Melnick?
And this is Tom Loftus.
Oh. Regent Loftus is here. A quorum is present.
Thank you. Well, thank you, everyone. We are going to, because of the nature of yesterday, probably a challenging morning in terms of the number of items, but we're hopeful that we will be able to do that in a timely way. Let me begin by saying the minutes of the October 15th and 16th meetings have been distributed. Correct? Move to approve. Aye. So, approved. The report of the Wisconsin Technical College System Board has been provided. Are there any questions? Regents on the board or Regents team?
Who's our chair?
I'm sure you're doing a very good job. I wanted to dispense with. I want to note that my right to tell you about one piece of news. Senior at UW. Counting students. This challenge, which is sponsored by the Association of Government Companies, is a highly competitive event and attracts teams from the top 30 business schools around the country, including Purdue University, University of Maryland, North Carolina State University, and Loyola University. For the challenge, Kevin and his teammates were required to analyze and offer a written response to a case centered on how a U.S. city government implements a performance management system. I am very pleased to report that Kevin's UW-Platteville team emerged victorious, winning the competition. As a result, the UW-Platteville team members will receive a prestigious scholarship from the AGA to present their government performance report at the National Leadership Conference on February 18th and 19th in considerably warmer Washington, D.C. This is the first time that UW-Platteville has participated in the Government Finance Case Challenge, so they've certainly set a high bar for the future. Congratulations to Kevin, the team's leader, and UW-Platteville. I also wanted to introduce Jane Radu, the new Secretary of the Board of Regents. Jane has served as the Assistant Director of UW Systems Office of Operations and Audit since 1998. In that role, she has studied a wide range of administrative and educational programs across the system. She earned her undergraduate and law degrees at this institution and is a member of the Wisconsin State Bar. She officially stepped into the new role on November 2nd, replacing Judith Temby, who has retired after 29 years with UW System Administration. Jane, we hope that you're 29 years in this job. I also just finally wanted to note that on Wednesday I was scheduled to talk to the UW Colleges and UW Extension Leadership Academy. This Leadership Academy, to give you a little background, is a model leadership program for faculty, academic staff, and classified staff of both the colleges and Extension. The idea is that graduates will emerge with a multi-dimensional perspective and the confidence needed to meet the challenges of a constantly changing environment, to think strategically and to act collaboratively as they serve the educational needs of Wisconsin residents. The program, which was originally offered through UW Extension, has been in place since 1990 through a series of 8 3-day sessions. Over the course of 2 years, the participants experience a variety of learning activities related to major policy, management, and leadership issues facing outreach in higher education in Wisconsin. One of those learning activities, remarkably enough, is to attend our Board of Regency. And I would like to welcome the almost 3 dozen Learning Academy participants who are joining us here today. Many of them were also here yesterday to sit in on committee hearings. Would you stand up? And we all welcome them to this. Let me now turn it over to Assistant President Kevin Riley.
Thank you, President Pruitt, and good morning, everybody. One of the nice traditions of this board, I think, is that for most meetings, as you know, I talk a little bit about some of the good news, the great things that are going on all the campuses, and I had a long list of those things today. I think in the interest of time and the condensed schedule because of the weather, I'll dispense with those, but I will send them out on Monday to all the board and the chancellors, and you can read about all the good things that have been going on recently on the campus that I would have highlighted today. I wanted to get right into our business, but before I did that, I thought, given the season of the year and the weather, I would recite an appropriate poem. This is called Shoveling Snow with Buddha by Billy Collins, who is, many of you will know, a former poet laureate of the United States and a professor of English at Lehman College in the City University of New York, or as it should be appropriately pronounced, New York. Shoveling Snow with Buddha. In the usual iconography of the temple or the local wok, you would never see him doing such a thing, tossing the dry snow over a mountain of his bare, round shoulder, his hair tied in a knot, a model of concentration. Sitting is more his speed, if that is the word for what he does or does not do. Even the season is wrong for him. In all his manifestations, is it not warm or slightly humid? Is this not implied by his serene expression, that smile so wide it wraps itself around the waist of the universe? But here we are, working our way down the driveway, one shovelful at a time. We toss the light powder into the clear air. We feel the cold mist on our faces, and with every heave, we disappear and become lost to each other in these sudden clouds of our own making, these fountain bursts of snow. This is so much better than a sermon in church, I say out loud, but Buddha keeps on shoveling. This is the true religion, the religion of snow and sunlight and winter geese barking in the sky, I say, but he is too busy to hear me. He has thrown himself into shoveling snow as if it were the purpose of existence, as if the sign of a perfect life were a clear driveway you could back the car down easily and drive off into the vanities of the world with a broken heater fan and a song on the radio. All morning long we work side by side, me with my commentary and he inside his generous pocket of silence, until the hour is nearly noon and the snow is piled high all around us. Then I hear him speak. After this, he asks, can we go inside and play cards? Certainly, I reply, and I will heat some milk and bring cups of hot chocolate to the table while you shuffle the deck and our boots stand dripping by the door. Ah, says the Buddha, lifting his eyes and leaning for a moment on his shovel before he drives the thin blade again deep into the glittering white snow. So happy holidays to everybody and their family. Enjoy the snow. All right, we wanted to spend some time talking and getting the board's advice on differential tuition policy. I thought as a preface to that, we ought to start by talking a little bit about quality and affordability. So I'll do that, and then I'll turn the floor over to Tom Andres, who will walk you through the differential tuition policy and practice as it now stands, and then open the floor for discussion and advice. There's no action required on this topic today. It's a discussion only, so this will be kind of a shortened version of one of your deep dive meetings, one of your seminar meetings on a topic. At the February meeting, we do hope to have the board take action then on a revised differential tuition policy based on what we hear from you today and any changes, revisions we want to incorporate based on that. And also, at the February meeting, we expect that you'll need to take action on some individual differential tuitions at the campuses. So I think generally when we talk about tuition, we should never do that absent a conversation about affordability and financial aid. I think the question always should be, how do we integrate tuition policy, both differential tuition and general tuition for that matter, with financial aid policy so as to assure affordability? The issue of quality underlies both sides of that discussion, I think, the tuition side and the affordability side. I'd put it this way. Quality without affordability in higher education is antithetical to American democracy. Affordability without quality is a mean fraud that will eventually undermine American democracy. And let's be frank, money matters to quality. I think we have done a very good job in this system of keeping our costs down. Our administrative costs, we know, are comparatively low. We know that our average cost per student is now some $1,500 below our peers. All of the data we have would indicate that we're taking the cost squeeze size of what we do very seriously. At the same time, do we need new revenue to maintain and enhance quality at a time when we are actively seeking to seriously increase the number of students who come to us, the number of students we graduate? Absolutely, we need ways to get more revenue into the system to do what the state needs us to do, what the country needs us to do. So we'll be seeking input today on ways to update and consolidate one way to get that revenue in, differential tuition, and do that in a way that will support, we hope, both quality and affordability. So this will be a big picture discussion, again, that will inform the recommendations we come back to you with in February for revisions of that policy. So a little history here. We did have a tuition and financial aid work group that reported out to the board in March of 2008. Regents Crane and Falbo were your representatives on that group. I went back last night and this morning and took a look at that report, and it's a really good report. Lays out all of the options with pros and cons, gives you very good background, I think, and context, so it's a kind of base document we can continue to refer to as we consider tuition, differential tuition going forward. The report basically said our current approaches were working pretty well, not perfectly, certainly. There's no perfect way to do this, but generally we're working pretty well, especially I think the group felt that in comparison with some other tuition schemes at other universities they looked at. But at the same time, the group that produced that report recognized that we were facing some serious new challenges. And to put it simply, I think those challenges are doing more with relatively less state support at a time when more and more of our students need more financial aid. They recognized in that report that our tuition is below that of our peers and that Wisconsin remains a low-aid state generally. I think we're creeping up a little bit on the tuition side. We're also creeping up a little bit on the aid side, as I will show in a minute or two. However, we still are on the low end of both when we compare ourselves with peer universities. What do we mean when we talk about affordability? Well, I think it really is a multidimensional measure. That is, it's not just the sticker price that you see when you might look in a catalog or on an official piece of information for students and families. That is, you've got to look, I think, at the total cost of attendance, tuition, room, and board, at least for those who are living away from home when they attend a campus. And as we know, many, many students do live at home, go on a kind of day hop basis, but you need to look at total cost for whichever kind of student you're looking at. You also need to look at what the available need-based financial aid is for students, and you need to look at a family's ability to pay to really understand what affordability means. There was an interesting publication out in 2008 called Measuring Up 2008, which makes a point of this. And interesting to note that Minnesota in that report actually ranked as more affordable than Wisconsin, even though its tuition is higher, while Iowa ranked less affordable, even though its tuition is lower, mainly because of higher student aid in Minnesota, lower student aid in Iowa, but also because the salaries on average in Minnesota are higher, the salaries on average in Iowa are lower. So lots of moving parts, I think, to take into consideration when we think about affordability. And need-based aid is certainly one of those big pieces we need to look at. 2 years ago, the system set a goal of doubling private need-based financial aid that we would give out. And let me hasten to say that we recognize full well that public need-based financial aid, mainly Pell Grants from the federal government and our state financial aid program from the state in Wisconsin, those programs do and should play the major role in preserving affordable access for our students. And we recognize, too, that much of the private aid that comes into our campuses now is targeted to students based on academic merit or special talents, and that's well and good. This business of raising private dollars, whether it's for aid or other purposes, is about the connection with the donors and potential donors and what they want to do with their money and how that conversation about that evolves with them over time. So it's not something that we in the university control in any real sense. At the same time, we really have made intentionally an effort to elevate the role of private need-based financial aid, scholarships and grants that go to our students based on their verifiable need from private sources. And I'm happy to tell you that we've really succeeded. I'm proud to say that for 2009-10, the UW system will provide $17.5 million in non-federal, non-state need-based aid compared to a little less than $6 million just a couple years ago. So in a couple years, we've tripled that amount. And I will tell you also that we'll be talking with the chancellors. I'll be meeting with the advancement officers from the campuses in January to see what our next goal ought to be for increasing the levels of need-based financial aid privately raised in the system, and we will have some. This board also requested additional funding for the Wisconsin Higher Education Grant. That's the main state need-based grant program, and those repeated requests by this board over the last decade, for instance, have had good effect in the sense that the annual funding grew from $18.9 million to $55 million. That's about 191% growth in 10 years. The number of recipients grew, as you can see, from under 17,000 to 27,000 plus. The average award doubled from a little over $1,000 to a little over $2,000. That's all good. Not enough, but good. You know, there are ways that students and their families, by planning ahead a bit and making some focused, strategic, intentional choices, can hold the cost of an education down. On most of our campuses, for instance, students taking between 12 and 18 credits pay the same tuition. This is the so-called tuition plateau. So right now, basically, you can take 6 credits a semester on most of our campuses for free, in effect. So for a degree program requiring 120 credits, students need 15 credits a semester to graduate in 4 years. And I was somewhat surprised and pleased to, when I looked at this, to find out that 29% of our system students now, system-wide, graduate in 4 years. That's almost a third of our students graduating now in 4 years. And a student taking 15 credits per semester using the plateau will pay 20% less in tuition and fees for a 120-credit baccalaureate degree compared to a student who takes 12 credits a semester. Graduating sooner also saves room and board if you're a residential student, moves the student into the workforce faster, therefore you have less foregone income for a couple years, and they start earning those wages while we gain some capacity that we wouldn't otherwise have to get new students into seats that those students have moved on from out into the workforce. Again, that's about planning ahead by students and families with our help, and I'll talk a little more about this. Another way to save some dollars as we think about affordability is a new initiative that a number of our campuses have been working on, and UW-Stout and the provost, Julie First-Bully, is here. Chuck, by the way, had some family health emergencies, the Chancellor Sorensen, so he couldn't be here today. But they have now announced that they'll offer 3-year degree options in the 3 programs you see there, pretty popular programs, I'd imagine, Julie, at Stout. These programs are not a revision of the curriculum. They really, it's the same curriculum from the 4-year version of these programs, but Stout will work with students and their families to make use of summer session and interims to complete the degrees in 3 years. We may well have some other campuses coming on with some of these 3-year degree experiments as well. And obviously, if you graduate in 3 years instead of 5 or 6, you are really saving some serious money. Another cost-saving option that this board has promoted in recent years is the UW colleges as a great place to start, as their slogan goes. Students can live at home or close to home for a while they get their education started. There's the guaranteed transfer that when they do move from a college into one of our 4-year campuses, they will transfer their credits seamlessly. We've got about 2,500 students a year who are doing that now, moving from the UW colleges to our 4-year institutions. And that's a great story about educational access, affordability, and mobility. And we'll continue to build that transfer population. And just to remind you, this board, at our recommendation, has frozen the tuition at the UW colleges for the last 3 years now, and another affordability move and another message sent to students and families around the state about a way they can make college going more affordable. Another way to do that is to participate in the Wisconsin Covenant. We now have about 52,000 students statewide who are signed up for the Covenant, which the state has assured will open the door to additional financial aid for students when they need it, when they start to approach our doors. And that first cohort who signed up for the Covenant, 17,000 strong of them, will enter college in fall of 2011. So a little less than, well, let's see, we're in fall 2009 now, so a little less than 2 years from now. There are some other things that we can do to help students and families make college more affordable. One of the interesting facts you'll see there is, and this is national data, we don't have this for the UW system or the state yet, but we'll try to get it. But nationally, we know about 60% of students fill out the FAFSA form, the federal financial aid form. And that means, obviously, 40% don't. And the estimate in national studies is that more than a quarter of those who don't probably qualify for a Pell Grant. So there's a lot of money being left on the table by a lot of students. So what can we do to pump up the numbers of students who fill that form out? And for any of you who have tried to fill that form out, you know how complex and difficult it is. And one of the things the federal government is doing now is trying to simplify the application form for financial aid. And that really is a necessary reform, and we certainly hope it goes forward. Another way to think about saving costs is to take college credit or AP courses in high school. We now have about 2,500 high school students who take UW college courses each year, and this doesn't count students who might take tech college or private courses while they're in high school, college courses. These are our numbers, but pretty good number. UW-Oshkosh has the largest of this kind of program, and its CAP program with, I think, about half of that number, Rick, is UW-Oshkosh credits, and they just got nationally accredited by an organization that accredits college credit in high school programs. So congratulations to Rick and his colleagues on that. We know that of about 65,000 high school graduates in Wisconsin each year. That's the number of students we have graduating from our high schools statewide. about 15,700 take an AP exam. About 10,000 of those pass the exam, that is, get a high enough score so that they're eligible for the college credit that can be attached to the AP exam. So as you can see, if we had a lot more of our high school graduates taking those exams, we could have a lot more credit in their pockets coming into college. Now, I think another piece of this that we need to look at, and this is a double-edged sword, is that from what we can tell in the research, students who come with significant amounts of credit in high school, college credit earned in high school, either through courses or exams, don't necessarily graduate any quicker. That's a general statement, but I think it's generally true, and that's probably because a lot of those students are really interested students and they want to stay around and take additional coursework while they're on campuses. But again, depending on how we communicated the savings that are possible using this tool of AP and college credit in high school, depending on how much more of it we did or encouraged, this could be a major cost-saving item in and of itself. Let me give you a little concrete example here of what we've been talking about. And we picked out Stevens Point just kind of randomly because we wanted to use the actual tuition at one of our campuses. And this is what I'm starting to call the UW System 4-year discount initiative. And this isn't the 3-year discount initiative. You know, that's going to be even cheaper, right? But this is the 4-year discount initiative. So if you look up at the first line under the blue bar on the far left side, it says tuition and fees paid. A 4-year graduate who's completing 15 credits a semester using the plateau at Stevens Point in tuition and fees will pay $27,765. A student who takes 5 years to move through Stevens Point and completes 12 credits on average a semester will pay $35,000, $686,000. The additional room or additional tuition and fees paid by that student will be almost $8,000, and the annual room and board costs will be another almost $7,000. So the total additional amount that student will pay for the privilege of staying that extra year at Stevens Point is almost $15,000. If a student stays at Stevens Point for 6 years because they're completing fewer credits per semester, it's going to cost them an extra $23,000 over a 4-year degree. Now, talk about cost savings. One of the things I think we probably haven't done well enough with our students and families is communicate about these kinds of effective discounts and cost-saving options. We talk a lot about tuition and tuition hikes, and everybody wants to hold down tuition. And again, I think we've done a good job of that, keeping it reasonable and moderate, and people get nervous at having to pay $200, $300 more a semester. If we said in an organized way to students and families, look, if you behave this way in the number of credits you complete per semester, we'll save you $15,000. Instead of going 5 years, you go 4. We'll save you $23,000 if you go for 4 years instead of 6. So what we will work on here in the coming months is a communication campaign to market these kinds of cost-saving options in a more organized and strategic way with our students and families. This system, each campus has for years had a 4-year contract by which students could come in, sign a contract on the campus that says, if I behave X and Y way, this institution guarantees me that I can graduate in 4 years. We have very, very few, almost no takers on that contract. And I would say, honestly, we haven't really marketed it. We haven't talked about it in the way we're starting to in this presentation this morning. So we're going to work, the chancellors and provosts and I and Rebecca Martin will work together to try to get more and more of our degrees into a 4-year template that's clear on each campus so that we can say to students and families, here's how you can do this. Here's a choice. Here's an option you have. And let me say, I don't want to be unmindful of the fact that different kinds of families have different options. The wealthier your family, quite frankly, the more options you're going to have. If you're from a poorer family, you may feel you need to work a lot to get through to pay the costs of college. Now, on that topic, I think we haven't really been very frank. I talk about frank talk and good choices in the second bullet on this slide. We really haven't been very frank with our students and families about what we do know from the research the effect of working a lot of hours a week is. That is, the students who get up working well over 20 hours a week tend to be retained in smaller numbers, tend to graduate in fewer numbers, tend to take longer to graduate if they do. So the more you're working, especially off campus, in work unrelated to your course of study, the more likely is you will not get through a degree at all, or you will not get through a degree in a really long time. And think of what's going on there. Very often these kids are working at minimum wage or something slightly above that perhaps, and as a result of that taking fewer courses, and as a result of that bumping themselves out into that fifth and sixth year where they're paying $15,000 and $23,000 more dollars. So we really haven't talked much about that. Higher ed generally across the country hasn't explained that paradox, if that's what it is, to students and families. And I think we need to talk more about it. We need to do things like we've started to do. I know, again, Oshkosh has a program like this. I think Eau Claire, as part of the Blue Gold commitment, is considering a program like this where we really work to provide a lot more work or work-study options on campus for students who have to work, but try to keep them close, try so they don't have transportation time and costs, try to get them into work-study programs that relate to their degrees as they move along, so it feels like an integrated experience. I think we need to do a lot more of that. And I think we just need to be clearer about the results of choices that students and families make on the cost of college. The big bumps up in cost, which really occur when you stay for extra years, as many of our students now do. Again, 29% finish in 4 years, which means obviously 71% take longer than 4 years right now. And you might remember what Michael McPherson said when he was up at our Eau Claire meeting recently talking about his new book and Crossing the Finish Line and research on this topic, interviewing one student about how long she was intending to take to complete her degree. And he quoted her as saying, well, who wants to leave the party at 10:30 p.m. about finishing in 4 years? You remember that? And a lot of that is choice, and I think that's fine. If students can afford to and want to stay and take more coursework, I mean, that's a good choice in and of itself, but we need to be clearer about what the consequences of that choice are about the costs of completing a baccalaureate degree. So, again, we'll work and we'll report back to you on this about how that work is going to get clearer with our students and families and prospective students and families. We'll work with the campuses. I think our higher education location program in UW Extension, which interacts a lot with counselors and students and their families, is a real resource in mounting a campaign of information like this, and we've already begun to talk with them about strategically how we might do that. So I think, again, we always want to talk, when we talk about tuition, about these kinds of choices and about affordability and access and the options that folks have. And, one of the options that students have chosen to enhance quality in this system is differential tuition, and this board has approved a number of those differential tuitions now. And today we want to look a little more closely at where we are in using that option, and again, think a little bit about how we might use it in a somewhat different way in the future if you want to revise some elements of that differential tuition policy come the February meeting. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Senior Vice President Andres to walk us through the history and the current practice in differential tuition. But President Pruitt, just let me ask if any regents have a question or two now. Yes, Regent Davis.
I really have two questions. Well, a question and a point. The question I have, you said 29% of our students graduate in 4 years. Is that up, down, sideways, and how does it compare to the national number? Well, is it up, down, is the first part for us, and how does it compare nationally? All right. Thanks.
Is it on?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. It is up.
It's up, okay.
Just a couple years ago, we were at 27%, and as Kevin said, we're at 29 now.
Uh-huh.
And that, in terms of the national average, I know for the 6-year rate, we're above the national average, and I can't say that I've looked at the 4-year recently to know.
You can let me know when you can.
I will.
That would be great. Kevin, you know, you make an excellent point about, thank you. You make an excellent point about the students who have to work and how that impacts lengthening the time that it will take for them to graduate under their best efforts. I think there's another group of students that same point could be made, and I don't know what we're going to do about it or how we can address it, and that is those students who have to take remedial courses in the first year, and the significant delay that can play, and those costs, they won't have any. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, we've been taking a serious look at the chancellors and provosts about ways to increase the number of graduates in the UW system, from the UW system in Wisconsin. I think what's becoming more and more obvious for all of us is that hiring here and around the country is going to have to put a lot more time, attention, and resources into the part of the educational pipeline that before they come to us.
Right.
Because right now, when you look at the leakages out of that pipeline, the number of students who never graduate from high school, the number of students who graduate from high school but never even apply to post-secondary, the number who graduate from high school apply but really are not ready to take on college level work when they apply. We are... Oh, sure. All right.
You're on a roll.
There we go. So I think what we need to come up with are a set of strategies where we will be a lot more active in helping more students to come more fully prepared so that we're not doing remedial coursework. And, one of the great things about these college credit in the high school programs is that, and I think there's some research, people can correct me if I'm wrong, but research to show this, is that those kinds of programs can help change the atmosphere around the senior year in high school and even the junior year. There are some juniors taking these college-level courses, so that students really are looking ahead and looking to the kinds of preparation they'll need to be successful when they come. But you're right, Regent Davis, this is just a huge area and a huge challenge that I think we know we are going to have to step up to in ways in the future that we haven't in the past.
Thank you.
Yes, Regent Womack.
I would like to call the board's attention to that document called Measuring Up 2008. If you haven't looked at that, it's a real interesting matrix on how you can compare all of the states as it relates to preparation, participation, affordability, and completion. And just in answering Regent Davis's question, I think that data was released in June of 2008, but it was actually on data in 2007. And it says here, for completion, the state of Wisconsin has an A-, and the completion definition is, the question is, do students make progress toward and complete their certificates or degrees in a timely manner? And we've received an A-, and it says Wisconsin performs very well in awarding certificates and degrees. And further, 58% of the college students complete a bachelor's degree within 6 years. And I'm assuming 6 years has become the definition of a timely manner. It's questionable. And it also says, however, only 33% of black graduates within 6 years compared to 60% of white graduates in the 6-year period of time. It's a fascinating document, and I played around with it when I received that and also looked at it last year. One of the other questions I would have also in the area of affordability is that 49 states received an F in affordability and only 1 received a C. And I was just wondering, certainly as President Riley alluded to earlier, there are so many moving parts to the concept of affordability as it relates to income and the percentage of income, the tuition, the support from the state, many, many, many things. I understand that, but I was just wondering, that state was actually Florida, I think. And I was just wondering if anybody could speak to that, or I know it's moving parts, but I was just wondering why out of 50 states, 1 state has a C and everybody else has an F, and do we know what they're doing or do we care?
Well, we keep hiring their people.
Sharon, do you have a sense of that?
We looked at it a while ago, and I can't recall why the one state had the C. It had somewhat to do about availability of data, though. That was one factor, and but we can look into it and get back to that.
Well, let me be unfair to Chancellors Ford and Van Galen, who have just come from Florida, and see if they have any thoughts about that.
Well, I'll begin, and Chancellor Ford will will correct me, right? Basically, Florida is a very low tuition state, 49th or 50th in the country, and also they have a Bright Future scholarship that basically if you do well, and the standards are not particularly challenging, but if you do well in high school, there is a state scholarship that is provided to all students. So they're relatively high aid, very low cost, although that has shifted dramatically in the last year or two given the budget situation in the state of Florida. So I think if they were rated today, they would not do nearly as well. Like many places, the cost is shifting more to the students and their families.
And Dean, is that state scholarship strictly need-based, or is it?
No, it is, on the contrary, it is merit-based, depends on doing service in high school, depends on performing with a certain GPA. Mm-hmm. So it is more of a merit-based scholarship.
Yeah. Thank you. Regent Pruitt.
Kevin, I just had your question on time and, sort of 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. I know I hear a lot from parents who suggest that their students aren't completing in 4 years because of the question of availability of classes and access to classes. And I wondered if you could just sort of comment a little bit about that. Or maybe, I know the Madison initiative is certainly a part of that. It's part of the Blue Gold. I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about that and what's been going on.
Sure. Well, again, I don't know that we have any really hard research which would let us respond adequately to your question, but certainly all these moving parts interact. For instance, and it's not unusual to hear a student say, well, I need this course, but I can only take it between X a.m. and Y p.m. on these 3 days a week because I work the other 2 days. Now, you've got different moving parts in conflict then when you try to say, well, is that course really available? Well, yeah, it might be available if you didn't have to work those other 2 days. And do you really have to work those other 2 days? And where are you working? So a lot of that is the kind of interaction between individual choice and what's actually available. As I say, we do have this option right now where students, if they say, look, I want to graduate in 4 years coming in. If parents say, we want this student to graduate, the student says that, they can negotiate that with any of our campuses, sign an agreement about what they need to do and we need to do, and we'll make it clearly possible, a clear pathway. My hope is that as we get more and more of our degrees into this new 4-year template kind of thing I'm talking about and communicate that, that will be a lot clearer, and it'll be clearer to parents, quite frankly, about whether the student is choosing to stay a little longer because they don't want to leave the party at 10:30 p.m., or we have a problem in course availability. And if we have a problem, this template will help to focus on that, and then we can fix it. Regent Opkenworth.
Yeah, I just had one question and a comment. And the first question is, what is the average credits to degree right now?
Yeah, they're down because we have made, by policy of this board, real efforts to drive them down. And Sharon, again, probably has those numbers in her head. Do you?
It is down. It's been on a really nice, constant trend downward, and it's at 132 right now for the system. It varies a little bit by UW institution.
Well, I just want to say you're probably short-selling yourself a little bit on that discount. And then the second thing was...
What do you mean, Kevin, short-selling on the discount?
Well, if a student is staying to 132 credits in doing that in a 4-year period, I think that the numbers on what you're telling us, what could be the savings if they did it faster, it could be greater.
Right, but the point there is 132 is not the requirement. That's the average, and the question is how many of those credits are taken because the student chooses to take additional credits or switches majors 2 times. And there are all those variables, as you know, come into it.
Certainly. I guess the other thing that I want to say was kind of related to that, and that it has to do with the comment that the student made about leaving the party at 10:30, and I think that the communication with students needs to be much better on the benefits of graduating in 4 years, because as a student, I feel many times that I've been sent mixed messages about time to graduation, because I think that many of you will recognize that maybe you said to a student before, you have all your life to work, don't rush it through school. So I think that really something that we need to think about is the something that so, I just think that maybe we should, yes, I think communication is the key.
And I think the communications, and I'm happy to hear others' thoughts on this, but the communication should not be prescriptive about this. They should be, here are your options, and here are your choices, and here are the effects that we know follow from these kinds of choices. And again, if a student, and the family has that attitude and wants to stay longer, not a problem. That's a choice. If they're able and willing to pay for it, seems to me they ought to be able to make. All right, we probably ought to move along, given the time. And I want to turn it over to Senior Vice President Andres to talk a little more specifically now about the differential tuition history and where we are now with the practice in this area. Tom?
Thank you, Kevin. One comment and one request. We saw another new poll this past week where graduation was not achieved because of the overwhelming nature of work.
Tom, this is Kevin. I heard part of what you said, but I didn't get the question. Did you ask a question?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Here's the question or the request. I would like something added to Appendix 2 for policies for the Regents to consider on differential tuition, that the tuition be tied to an increase in the graduation rate at that particular institution, that there be a quid pro quo. If some option like that could be added to Appendix 2, I think it would be help the discussion. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, President Riley. I think one of the things that we're seeing is that there really is a necessity to make a connection between affordability and any increasing costs. And as we talk about increasing costs, obviously today is differential tuition, we need to make sure that we also realize there's an added benefit. And I think that's part of a major part of differential tuition as we go forward. What I'll do today is offer some background on process, use, value. What is differential tuition? Why is it necessary? How is it used? How is the student involved in establishing differential tuition, and what policy questions should be considered? The focus really will be on the policy questions. This is not a long presentation, so you'll be able to dive right into that. On page 8 and 9, there's a set of questions that were developed, and what I'll be doing with my questions is trying to simplify those, bring those out, and I think even as Regent Loftus mentioned, there'll be other opportunities to talk about variations on the various options. Also, at the end of our discussion, I'd like to ask Chancellor Levin-Stankiewicz to maybe give us a little bit of an update on what's happening at Eau Claire in terms of their differential. Okay, what is differential tuition? Pretty straightforward. It's an increment of additional funding beyond what you would typically approve on an annual basis. This year you approved 5.5%. As campuses go forward and say we want to do a differential tuition, whatever that amount is added on top for their particular institution. And as it says, for services and programming that are generally tailored to that institution. Differential tuition can be implemented through individual programs, on an institution-wide basis, and on a system-wide basis. In terms of programs, you're looking at a subset of students. You're looking at a student that may be in architecture, engineering, business, where you have a high-cost program. And that becomes then the program-specific cost, and it is borne by those students. From an institutional standpoint, looking at institution-wide, we're talking about something that hits a majority or a large segment of the student population. As an example, the Madison Initiative, where we were looking at all of the undergraduates. System-wide initiative is one that right now is defined as one that would be program-specific, but affecting all of the campuses. We have none of those right now. They don't exist, at least not in a comprehensive fashion. So just to be aware of that. All differential tuition revenues remain at the campus, obviously a very key component, and students can see the direct benefits from the additional tuition. Differential tuition initiatives can be tailored, again, with student involvement, and we'll look at that level of involvement to enhance services or programs that are high priority to students and the university. Why is differential tuition necessary? I have to admit, when I came here, I was somewhat baffled in terms of, you do a tuition increase here. In our case, we did the 5.5% on a general tuition. And it took me a little while to understand in terms of how those dollars could be used. Because my first reaction is, well, why don't we ask for 7% or 8% and get those dollars, those additional dollars that may not be driven directly to that GPR-based budget, to the state budget, and make those available to the campuses. Well, there's some pretty specific reasons in terms of how those dollars can be used, and thus the differential tuition. But we can use increases in the biennial budget, and in this biennium that went for an offset of the budget reductions on the GPR side, and it went for utilities. We can use it for compensation, and obviously very important there because, again, within the state budget, you're looking at a combination of state funds matching with tuition funds at differing levels. So the tuition is very important, but again, focused on compensation, focused on the loss of revenue caused by reduced enrollments. Okay, that is an option. State-mandated costs not covered by GPR. If we don't get full utilities funding, if we don't get full support on our health care premiums, that would be coming out of tuition. Something very focused is distance education, non-traditional courses, and intersession courses. Again, very limited, very narrow. And then, fortunately, we've got differential tuition. That allows the campus to go back and say, we need to get some additional faculty. We need to be looking at additional technology in our classrooms. We need additional financial aid. This is the resource primarily to be able to do that. So it's obviously very important. How is the funding used? Ultimately, the way we look at this, at least from my perspective, is it's going to have to add quality. It's going to have to add some value. It isn't simply backstopping a loss in the general fund. And as I mentioned, need-based financial aid, advising support services, wellness programs, additional faculty, undergraduate research, freshman experiences, library services, internships. These are all things that are happening on different campuses right now in terms of the use of their differential. And obviously there are much more. But these are really important. One could say, geez, they're so important. It's not just about quality. It's about just doing the job the way you have to. But given the way we've got a definition and the restricted purposes of on the state side with our regular general tuition, this is really sort of that difference, what can make a difference to each of the campuses. How is the student involved in establishing differential tuition? Okay, there is a Regent policy that exists, and that policy is broken down into specific guidelines. And the guidelines are relatively clear, I think, in terms of the expectation. But at the same time, each of the campuses can look at those guidelines and say, you know, maybe we'll look at consultation, or we'll look at working with students, student government in a different way, or in the way that is best for us. But what each of the proposals, as it comes forward, must include and understand is that students are going to be advised through their student government organizations. That is, there's an expectation, the university working with the students, working with the student government, creating opportunities to make sure that everybody is aware of what is being looked at, requested, and ultimately recommended. Institutions will consult with students most directly impacted by differentials. Again, if you have a program differential, you want to make sure you focus on those areas where there's a program. You know, maybe it's business, engineering. Make sure those students understand. The board requires student consultation process and an outcome from that process, plus official stance of the student government, if there is any. The best way to highlight what this is to look at the Madison Initiative. And actually, as I understand it, what was happening or what is happening at Eau Claire as well. A tremendous amount of input from the students, involvement, debate. A lot of things are going on as obviously that the campus and the administration has a perspective on what they need to do. But at the same time, what these processes are doing are bringing them together in a way where there's perhaps some better understandings from both perspectives. And again, from what I can see from the interactions that have taken place, at least at these two campuses, it's very impressive. The purpose of the differential as defined by the institution and students must be clearly stated. Kind of seems obvious, but there are probably ways that if students are not very actively involved and the administration is moving forward with some initiatives, if there's not a high level of interest, then you continue to move. So the consultation may not be as extensive. Proposals must describe any oversight, evaluation, and/or consultation process for the initiative. So you've got not only what the process is leading into and review and approval of the differential, but you've also got a requirement to say, okay, what's happening afterwards? We said that we needed X millions of dollars for funds. We said these were the purposes. Is that what happened? So you've got an evaluation process. You've got an ability to have some feedback. And obviously that's going to be of concern not only to the students and to the administration, but frankly, as we bring this information forward to you, it will be important to you as well in understanding the follow-up. Policy questions. This will sort of be the primary focus. This is my last slide. So I think what you need to understand is that over the last year and a half, business, finance, and audit has had many questions coming up. There's been many differentials, institution, program that have come forward for review. And obviously they've all come back to the full board. But there has been a lot of discussion in terms of policy or where there isn't policy. And what does that mean? And timing and so forth. So what we'll try to do now is get into that a little bit. The questions that you're going to be looking at can range from process, timing, when do we look at something? How often do we look at something? But ranging up to something perhaps a little bit more complex, and that is what's the capacity of a campus to afford a differential? At what level can they afford this? Student access, affordability. I think the emphasis that we're seeing now on financial aid is clearly there because there is an issue on access and affordability. Again, going back to President Riley's necessary connection between increasing tuition and affordability. 4 questions that we'll be looking at today. And again, these are sort of derived from the questions on page 8 and 9. Page 8 and 9 have what I would say are sort of more involved questions, and ones that as you look at those and in the discussion we have today, there's a complexity to all of this that we need to think about. But should the number of proposals be limited? There is no policy right now. And sort of the question is, do you have 2 or 3 major institution-wide policies? If you do, what's the implication of that on the students? Do you have multiple program differentials? What does that imply for that student on a broader system or on a broader university-wide basis? Second question, are the present guidelines for student involvement in setting differential tuition adequate in ensuring debate and input? So you've seen the guidelines. And the question is, are these meeting the purposes that we have? Do we need to look at something that suggests that we should standardize some part of the process, some part of consultation, follow-up, feedback? Is there something that we want to make slightly firmer than what it may be right now? Third question, should there be a mandate to include a financial aid component on all new proposals, or should campuses make those decisions based on their individual program and student circumstances? Okay, that's a big question. Right now, we're seeing the financial aid elements coming forward in our proposals, and one can't look at that and say that's not important. On the other hand, one can look at this and say, from a campus standpoint, and maybe all the campuses now will say, we really do need to have a financial aid component. But depending on the size of your request, the impact on the student, is it $200 a year, is it $1,000 a year? There are certain levels that we would need to think about as well if we wanted to establish a policy. There is no policy right now on this at all. Another question, should the board be concerned with the variance in size of differentials by campus? What that means is that there are some campuses that have a capacity to charge a larger tuition. I mean, there's no question that there are differences between the campuses, and that being the case, the campus that has less of ability to take advantage of a differential, what does that mean for their program improvement, their abilities to move forward in certain areas, given that they may not have access to the same set of resources? So, President Pruitt, I'll turn it over to you.
Do we want to hear from Chancellor Levin?
Do you want to? We can do that now.
You just indicated that an update. Is this the moment to do it?
This is good, yeah.
Okay.
Want me to come up there?
Wherever you're comfortable.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to bring you up to date on the news from Eau Claire. We did a fairly extensive presentation at the October meeting at Eau Claire at the Finance Committee meeting. And our students were there, our alumni were there to talk about the various aspects of what I call the Google commitments, which are commitments on the part of students to pay more, on the part of the university to address problems of great concern to the students, and on the part of alumni and donors to put more skin in the game to match the students as well. We've been working on this for a long time. As Kevin and many of you know, we originally looked at the differential tuition process and thought, is there another way? Is there a way that we could model or pilot a different way of doing this so that we can get out of the kind of box we've been in? It turns out that there really weren't many options for us to look at, and differential tuition was statutorily the only real option that we had. So in the fall, I announced to the campus that it was my intention to pursue a differential tuition proposal, and laid that out as the real to the ideal. I said a range of $1,000 to $2,500 as a range. Let's dream and let's be real. We created a number of student task forces. We didn't, student government did. There were 4 or 5 student task forces led by student senators. And in early November, they, working with the academic affairs staff, really came forward with a proposal. I wasn't even involved in the development of that proposal at that point. And their proposal was a differential tuition of $1,500 phased in over a 4-year period, with approximately up to 40% of that revenue being used to offset the cost for low and middle income families. A hold harmless clause, if you will, defined more on estimated family contribution than it is on family income levels. That came forward from the students in early November. Throughout the month of November, we have engaged in extensive outreach to our students, emails to all students, a website on which students and parents could submit input, a number of open forums. We did 3 presentations to the Student Senate. We had weekly articles in the Spectator, considerable coverage by the Leader Telegram, as well as other statewide media. I have visited to student organizations and residence hall councils. We've had lunch visits in the cafeterias, dinner visits in the cafeterias. Our student leadership, 4 or 5 of them, have gone out and visited classrooms and reached over 3,000 students in those visits alone. Now remember, we have about 11,000 student enrollment. We, I think, have touched just about everybody in one way or another. A survey was done on December 1st through 3rd by student government. It was a variety of questions in there about what do students want to see happen at the university, and they included many of the goals of the Blue Gold Commitment, which are enhancing the high-impact practices like undergraduate research, immersion experiences, study abroad, integration of those elements and internships, integration of those into the majors, overwhelming support for all of those elements. Then there was a question, are you familiar with the Blue Gold Commitment? It was something like 80-some%, so they were familiar with the Blue Gold Commitment and the details. And then the question is, are you in favor of it? Survey was negative in terms of are you in favor of the Blue Gold Commitment? The biggest obstacles being the total amount of the increase, and secondarily, the amount of the revenue that would be used towards financial aid. Being, in many students' opinion, 51% of the students' opinion, not what they wanted. And they didn't specify whether they wanted it low or higher. They just specified it was a cause for them not supporting the commitment. Student Senate met the next week after that survey came out, and they all had an opportunity to review the outcome of the survey in detail, the detailed responses to the question. They had a very long meeting. I was not at it, but the people who were, and we had our financial aid director there to work through a variety of scenarios, said it was a model of democracy, including some rather astute political maneuvers by students who were opposed to the plan, who went and actually supported a higher level of financial aid, hoping that support would then lead to it being voted down by other students. So it was apparently quite a lesson in democracy. The Student Senate, I think, as we have all along, we've been responding to the input we've gotten. The Student Senate voted their endorsement of a Blue Gold Commitment. That vote was unanimous, that we should support a Blue Gold Commitment. On the matter of the amount of the Blue Gold Commitment, the Senate took a vote and on an amendment proposing a $1,200 increase, again phased in over 4 years. That vote was, I believe, 22 in favor, 6 against, and 1 abstention. They then had a long and heated and passionate debate about the level of financial assistance. We're finding a number of students opposing any financial assistance, or others wanting less than a 40%. I don't remember, Biddy, if you're somewhere around 50% at Madison. Was that the numbers the students were saying yesterday? The amount going to financial aid?
50% of our funds.
Yeah. That led to a closer vote in the end when that amendment was added in. And so the students stayed with the 40%, up to 40% of the funds going to financial aid, and the final vote on that was 17 to 15. But it did pass the Student Senate. And I have a resolution now on my desk at the university, endorsing the BUGO commitment with those parameters. I will continue to work with students and fundamentally take that into consideration as we develop a proposal to bring forward to the board based on, in part, your conversations here. And between now and when I do, I can tell you expect to see me, as Big and Rich say, coming to your city. So I don't know if there are any other questions. I think that we've laid out the purposes of the BUGO commitment as completely additive as opposed to substitutive of budget cuts. The governor's talked about the new normal. I've been talking about the new normal. That's what it is. That's where our budget is. Now we want to build on that. The university that we want to be in 2016, not sort of build back the university we were 2 years ago. And so that's where we are. I think pretty extensive student involvement. Our students, as you heard yesterday from the Madison students, came up with an oversight process that we've agreed to that fundamentally is identical to what the Madison students had developed, and they did that independently. So they met and they were pleased that the level of oversight was improved over what it has been, and we have a differential tuition on campus now. It's $163, I believe, and change. And that's been in place since 1998. And I think we can demonstrate its added value as opposed to substituting for budget cuts, and that's we want to build on the ethos of the existing differential tuition that we have.
Thank you. Thank you. I was just going to suggest, thank you, Chancellor, if anybody has any specific questions, you do? Anybody have any specific questions? If not, Brian?
Mike has a question.
Mike, go ahead.
Yeah,
Regent Falba.
In my mind, I'm questioning, certainly we're all for financial aid. I'm questioning, though, whether the differential is the place for it to be. And with what you have been going through in your process, and with what Biddy has gone through in her process, we have some experience here that maybe both of you can share with us as far as that financial aid piece. And I want to, again, make it very clear, I'm for financial aid, we all are. But should it be part of this differential, or should it not, I think is my question, and we have some very current and fresh experience to talk about that.
I mean, if you pull away from this and try to look at it more globally, we are having the same debate that if you pick up the Times Higher Education Supplement in London, the front page is the same debate you're having today about differential additional tuition, differences in tuition between institutions, what's the maximum cap we can go to, how are students going to pay for that. If you look at it nationally, and again, we had the example of Florida being a low tuition, fundamentally low tuition, higher aid state. We've been a low tuition, low aid state. We have some institutions that are fundamentally saying we need to be more of a moderate tuition, moderate aid state, and the only way we can get to that moderate aid level is by providing it out of the revenue that we generate, which is fundamentally the same model that private universities operate on. But what we're doing is we're doing it piecemeal. We're saying here's the base tuition set by the Board of Regents, and here's the base financial aid you're eligible for. Now here's an additional tuition, and here's some additional financial aid that I would say proportionally is significantly higher than the base aid is to the base tuition, the ratio of aid to tuition increase. In the long run, I don't know how sustainable that is as a model. But it's the only option we have right now.
Councilor Martin, did you want to comment?
I would just say, Regent Falbo, that in the private sector, in private universities, many of them try to stay at a discount rate, it's called, of about 30% or less, which means using up to, but not too much more than 30% of their tuition funding for financial aid. It's a very long-standing model, very, very old. And I think for the most part it works, so there's a long tradition. Insofar as our differential tuition has what you could call a higher discount rate, that is 50% of what we're bringing in goes to financial aid. That's in order to correct
what I see is the problem of Wisconsin not having focused on raising financial aid in the past. If you look overall at the relationship between tuition as a whole at Madison and financial aid, the so-called discount rate would be very low. That is, we're using very little tuition overall to provide financial aid. I think it would be preferable to be able to raise private money for financial aid and to get more money from the state and the federal government for financial aid. But if we want to be realistic as opposed to simply wishful, I think we have to acknowledge that using some of the differential tuition for financial aid is necessary, at least in the short term. And on the private fundraising front, I would simply say, as I'm sure many of you know, when people have not been encouraged to think of financial aid as a target for their giving, and they haven't been in this state, it takes a while to generate interest and enthusiasm among donors for something which is brand new to them. And that's what I've been finding. That was true at Cornell when we first started scholarship campaigns for undergraduate financial aid. It took a while. Once it caught on, the campaigns we launched actually exceeded our expectations. But donors and alumni groups have to be educated about why financial aid is critical and why it might be more critical than some of the things they love giving to. Kevin, when he talked about the amount of financial aid funding that the chancellors have raised at the campuses, mentioned that we don't have total control over donors, obviously, but we do have a responsibility to educate donors to the importance of financial aid and get them interested in it as a priority, as well as the buildings and the faculty endowments and other kinds of revenues.
I think I'd also want to add that there are a number of forms of aid, and President Riley mentioned earlier the nature of on-campus employment for students, which we know from the research promotes retention, promotes on-time graduation, promotes persistence to degree. My colleague at Oshkosh, Chancellor Wells, has increased the student employment opportunities on his campus, and it's a wildly popular thing to do. We looked at our existing differential tuition. About a third of the money actually ends up in the hands of students through research fellowships, undergraduate research assistantships, undergraduate learning assistantships, and other kinds of on-campus jobs. Part of what we're looking at in terms of making this, continuing to make it affordable for students is having a significant component of the Blue Gold commitment also be fundamentally given back to students like U.S. international aid. It tends to end up, a significant portion of it ends up back in the hands of Americans, either companies or people. So that's another aspect of this.
Thank you. As the board knows, we are going to be hearing much more about the Blue Gold commitment, I'm sure, in February, and I think that the purpose, and hopefully Tom will stay close. The purpose of spending a few minutes here is for the board to sort of weigh in on these broader policy questions related to differential tuition that Tom and Kevin, and I think a most excellent presentation, have sort of outlined both the history and I would suggest that we begin by, and also welcome the comments from chancellors and provosts and others in the system as we go, but to allot a little bit of time for the board to just talk amongst yourselves and amongst our broader community about thoughts on any of these questions that have been raised. And well, let me just start there with that invitation, and then if necessary, we can sort of focus on a particular question. But I know in my own conversation with the board, there's a lot of feeling about this issue, and I'd welcome sort of comments and if you have questions, but on this broader topic of differential tuition and where we are and where we might go and what potential changes in overall region policy on this question you'd like system to entertain, and then come back to us at a subsequent meeting. Regent Smith.
Well, let me just start out on what I think might affect some of the policy questions would be looking at how we've done with, and I'm now looking at the campus-wide differential as opposed to different programs. as to how it's worked, at least at what we've done up to this point in time with La Crosse, Madison, and now with Eau Claire. I think it's important to see how we're doing with it. And I know Eileen and Stan and I were at La Crosse, which is the longest one that's where it's system-wide or the campus-wide a couple weeks ago, and talked to a variety of groups about differential tuition, and we got a very positive response as to how it has worked on the La Crosse campus. And I think yesterday we heard the start from Chancellor Martin, some of your students, and there's a lot still to go, but it was a very positive reaction. So I think, not to say that how it's been done on La Crosse or Madison or Eau Claire is necessarily have to be followed in every case, but I think those examples will show that it is, I think, working, each one with a unique, each one with its own purpose for what differential tuition would be used for. And that's, I guess, where I come down is I like what we've done so far as saying each, as opposed to looking at it system-wide, each particular campus has their own plan, their own idea of student involvement, and it is unique to each campus. And I would like us, at least in my view, to continue to be looking at them on a one-by-one basis, coming to us one at a time, as opposed to trying to all kind of lump them together.
Thank you. Richard Bradley.
I think Regent Davis did that. Kevin, I don't know if this is a question for you or Tom or Sharon, but I know how we see these numbers in our board materials. But if I were a student or a parent and I was looking at 3 or 4 different campuses in the UW system, where would I see the whole picture? Where I would see, for example, the comprehensive tuition, that's readily available. Everybody sees what a comprehensive campus in the UW system charges for tuition. But where would I see the whole picture that shows me the cost of Eau Claire, the total cost of Eau Claire and Oshkosh and Stevens Point and Superior? How easy is that for our consumers to get at, to really see and compare? And how do we disclose that second number? I mean, I call it the privatization surcharge, but that's just me. I mean, there is tuition, and it's possible that tuition will be the more moderate number that students and parents are going to see, and then they've got to see some other line there that tells them what this other thing is and where it comes from, and then they see the total, and they'll see that it's really very different around the system, and that challenges us as a system to have a nice, clear explanation of why a taxpayer, for example, says, gee, these are all state-supported institutions, and yet all these numbers are different.
Mm-hmm. Sharon wants to make a comment, and then a couple of our chancellors want to respond. So let me have them do that.
Thank you, Kim. Well, I'm very proud to say that the UW system is part of the voluntary system of accountability, the national effort that puts these kinds of data out on every campus website. So the public has the ability to call up an institution, look at that, and readily available to click on to another institution to do a side-by-side comparison of these additional costs beyond the tuition costs. And so these cost calculators is what we're talking about here. So all of the UWs in the UW system are participants in that, the 4 years, and there's still work being done to develop a template for the 2-year colleges, so that to bring all of them on board to this national initiative.
Chancellor Gao?
I was going to say, our differential tuition, now the tuition number incorporates that cost, so there's no mystery about that. And also, when we phased it in, I wrote a letter to all the parents of the new students explaining this increase. And there was no mystery about it. I think that's a very important point because sometimes there are fees that you don't see, and people do want to know what is the exact cost. Our experience, I think Regent Smith makes a great point. This is going to be different for every campus, and I think that's why we have a board of regents, and you determine what is appropriate based on the situation. We learned a few things. We saw that the financial aid piece is very controversial, and I don't think that's because people, I don't think they understand we're already doing things with need-based aid. There's kind of a quality to it of, this phrase in the healthcare debate, keep the government's hands off my Medicare. I really don't think people, they don't seem to grasp we do have need-based financial aid and how it works. In our case, the legislators, because we were tied into the budget in that biennium, said we don't want this, you can't have it, and they even gave us some money in the budget to give to financial aid. So that was how we handled that. I think the other thing we learned is that when you are asking people to pay more, you have to be very specific, as clear as you can, about what the money will be used for. And in our case, I think people forget, we are fortunate in that we're ranked very well in U.S. News, but if you look at our student-faculty ratio, it's 24-1, and I sat down and I looked at that and I said, wow, that's the highest ratio of all the 80 Midwestern Masters universities in that top tier. And just for curiosity, I looked at the North, South, and the West. Wow, UW-La Crosse at 24-1 is the highest student-faculty ratio of all 290 master's institutions that they rank. And if you go down into the lower tiers, there were like 5 other schools in California and Arizona where they have some real serious issues who had that ratio or higher. So what we said to people was it's more tuition for more teachers, more tuition for more teachers, and just kept that message out front. And they got that and said, yes, we think that's a good thing. And I'm very proud to say, and you can keep your tomatoes, my chancellor colleagues, but we hired 47 more faculty this year at a time when there wasn't a lot of, Berkeley had 10. So we felt very good. And I talk about that to prospective students and parents, and they clap. So we found this is something people do understand, where their money's going to go into the classroom, and it pays dividends. The third thing that we learned is, and as we've seen at Madison and Eau Claire, very important to get student input and to have the students with you the whole way. Now, there's something important to remember on our plan. We phased it in, so we did it out in the future. And our students thought that was a good idea because they weren't going to be paying it, So that was something that was helpful in terms of how it was packaged and timed. And then we did a referendum. And we did a binding referendum where we said, if you say no, we will not take this to the Regents. And that does empower your students. It's a little bit of a dice roll, if you will, from the point of view of the administration, because you never know, are people going to be educated enough to make a good decision? But our students then participated in record numbers, and we had some very compelling support for this. Now, actually, you can get your students to even approve raising their own tuition, because we have another much smaller differential. That's a $30 per semester fee that was instituted prior to my arrival. That needs to be raised, and we just did another referendum last month and got about 3,400 students, and 85% of them said, yes, we're willing to double that fee, because, again, we were very clear on what that money will buy. So I think you're going to see more of these plans because, it's no secret, we're all underfunded, but it's in different ways, and everybody will have different needs on their campuses. But I think there's a way to do this, and it has had no, as you heard our regents who were very kind and came and visited the other day, there's been no negative to this at all. I have not heard anybody saying we're not coming because we can't afford it, that kind of thing. So, I think it's been a very good thing for our campus, and I'm delighted to watch my colleagues and their own efforts, and again, it varies by campus, but I think this is a good direction for us, and, so just wanted to give you a little bit of insight from La Crosse.
Back to Regent Bradley's question Associate Vice President Harris was reminding me that that kind of comprehensive look at each institution's tuition and fees in total does appear in the introduction to the UW system that HELP, the Higher Education Location Program, puts out that you were involved in founding a number of years ago. So it does appear as, in addition to the VSA there as well.
Regent Davis.
In terms of the policy questions that are on pages 8 and 9, the first one I'm interested in all of them, but I'm really interested in the whole issue of student engagement and involvement. And I was really quite pleased to hear Chancellor Levinson-Kavich talk about not only the students and all of the effort to engage as many students as possible throughout the process in deciding, but I was also pleased to hear the word parent. So I would want to suggest that from a policy standpoint, we should figure out a way to be interested in, or I don't think there's a standard level of student involvement that I'm looking for, but I do think we need to look to ensure that the efforts that have been made have great depth and breadth in terms of students' input on that. I'm most concerned about students who don't generally get involved in student government and what have you, and yet the impact of a differential tuition will play on them. So while we may not be able to tell student organizations, listen, you got to do X, Y, and Z, I think we can review the requests that come to us on a measure that looks at student engagement and perhaps parental engagement. So that's my comment.
Thank you. Regent Bartel, and then we'll come back to this. I don't mean to be biased. It just went to the right, and I can't get myself out of here.
I wanted to ask Chancellor Gao what the result of the referendum was with respect to the financial aid piece of the first differential and this latest differential.
We didn't have that in the proposal at that point because it had been through the legislative budget process, and I mean, people said to me, legislators, if you have that in, it's a non-starter, so we did modify it.
Yeah. Well, I am very strongly in support of including a financial aid piece in any differential, tuition differential proposal. I think we learned from Professor McPherson and other data that it is very important to provide need-based financial aid in terms of success, graduation rates, and so on. I think that it's very easy for students to say, well, why should I pay tuition for somebody who's living next door? But it's necessary in order to increase the graduation rate, to provide access to our higher education in Wisconsin. We need to do this. And we can't just rely, as much as we'd like to, on private fundraising and state increases in need-based financial aid. So I would urge that be a very important part of any tuition differential that is brought to the Board of Regents.
Thank you. Okay, I'll go here, and then I'm coming back to you, Regent Crane.
I support the last statement, and I also would like to point to the fourth policy question on the slide concerning the variance among campuses, because I think that there is, I do have concern about some campuses having greater ability to make this work than others, and that will affect what happens on campuses that don't have some of those advantages. I don't know the answer to that, but I do think, I'm glad that question is here, and I think it does need to be a part of what we do as we move ahead on a system-wide basis.
Related to that, does anyone want to share any thoughts about what, as we ponder those kinds of things, what kind of questions the board might be asking themselves about?
I have a thought, but I think Chancellor Levinson-Kavich and then Chancellor Martin. Brian, were you on this issue or the previous?
I was an issue back. So.
All right, let me go to Chancellor Martin then, and then we'll come back to Brian. Ready?
You want to go first?
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Regent Crane, that I think it's important to add to your concern, a concern about imagining that the variances could be eliminated or that they should be eliminated. And maybe the question should be, should we be concerned about variances between and among like campuses? Because the missions are so different across the different kinds of campuses, and I can see why it would be a problem to have like campuses with similar missions at great variance from one another. But to disallow those campuses that need and want to enhance or sustain the quality of their degrees and their programs because others don't have the same means, I think across all the differences in missions would be a mistake.
I agree with that. I just don't, there is a tension within me on how that...
Let me say a few words about that. I think there is a tension, and we've begun to grapple with it. We don't have, Judy, the answer either, but I think one of the things that's notable to me as I look at how this whole issue is developing is that in the case of Madison, in the case of La Crosse, in the case of Eau Claire, they're not campuses now that are looking to grow their enrollments by huge numbers. They have lots of folks who want to get in. They're the most selective campuses in the system, and they're more or less sitting where they kind of want to be, generally speaking. Some of the other campuses that may want to grow may be among those whose average family income now for the students who are there are lower. So I think one of the things we may look at going forward, and happy to have people's reaction to this, is there a way that we can ask for assistance from the state to help grow enrollments on those campuses without their having to raise differential tuitions to the levels that some of the campuses that are more selective are currently able to do. I don't know if that's the right way to go, but I think it's something we've begun to talk about. Do you want to go to Regent Wells? Chancellor Wells?
Chancellor Wells? Oh, sure. I didn't know that he wanted to go.
I think this is the most important policy question about the variances between, and I like what Kevin is saying. But what that really means, if this is going to work, and it's very complex, is that these other campuses could make an argument that they need more support per student, given the nature of the mission they're serving, and the socioeconomic status of our institutions, of the students in them, vary significantly. So Oshkosh can't go to right now we have a $110 differential tuition, roughly, 2% of our overall tuition. These rates we're talking about now are, 10, 20% of the base tuition. That's a lot of variation in differential tuition from one campus to another. So I guess the plea I'm making is, if we're going to go in that direction, that means some campuses that can't handle their needs this way so that they're a quality experience, regardless of the mission they serve, the selectivity of the mission, will get greater percentage of the GPR funding that comes from the state.
Regent Wingate.
Okay, well, I have quite a bit to say about this topic, and I won't exhaust all of my comments in this particular meeting. But first, as we heard in Business Finance Audit yesterday, from student leaders here at Madison that lead the student involvement in the Madison Initiative, student involvement in the process is key, and I think we all know that and realize that. Getting students into the process to make decisions and advise academic affairs to what students want is what we are doing at some level on every campus, and what I believe we need to continue to support and enhance on our campuses. I don't think that this is really that much to ask to bolster this kind of student collaborative process, because I think student advice more often than not falls in line with administrative direction. And as we heard from Chancellor Martin yesterday, student decisions are often more critical than the administrative decisions on different programs that come forward. One of the many ways I think we can support the student role on campuses is giving better definition or guidance to students on their ongoing role in the process. Students really don't always know just how much we support them in this process. One problem that you can see on some campuses is that there's a focus on student involvement on the onset of the differential tuition process, but we could do more to ensure ongoing collaborative feedback from the entire campus community into how DT is administered on the campus, especially if we're going to define DT as an initiative and direction that's taken up by the entire campus community. And second, when I have this conversation with many students and members of campus communities, you get the feedback, why aren't we asking the state for these resources first? And we need to show that we've exhausted all other options before we resort to raising tuition. And that's a story we need to get better at telling, and we need to show the steps that we've taken before we got to that point. And I think that's a that's a comment and concern that I get back very often when I have this conversation. So I think it's something that I would look at addressing. So I've been getting feedback from students across the state, or starting to, and on what works well and what needs improving. And I really look forward to sharing that with this board as these conversations go forward. So,
thank you. Regent Drew, welcome.
Regent Wingate makes a great point about the state aid. I think we have to be careful not to sort of adjust ourselves to a new normal that does not expect that the state continues to provide the level of funding that's needed for higher education. On the issue of financial aid or hold harmless, that's what we do is we set policy, and I think the policy should be that in any differential tuition include a hold harmless or a financial aid component to it. And one of the concerns I have with differential tuition is that we have to avoid setting entry barriers to higher paid occupations and fields by raising those without a hold harmless or a financial aid component to it.
Thank you. Regent Falba.
First of all, President Stewart, I wanted to thank you for favoring the right.
The last time I'll do that for a very long time.
This may not be a major piece, but I think it's something that should be built into the process as we move forward, and that is if differential tuition, as was suggested, mirrors tuition, then there's a piece that we're missing, that because we're all in a ramp-up period of these large differentials that are coming in over some time. There needs to be a cost to continue component as we work with in our budget. And as I talked to the students yesterday from UW-Madison, they were very interested in that, because when you get fully ramped up and you have this differential coming in, if you don't have a cost to continue component, you're going to cut programs that you've already funded. So I think as we're looking at this, and again, it's not the major issue, but if we're looking at a process that's going to be sustainable, that needs to be done.
Great. Thank you. Regent Oppenheim.
I guess just one question that I've had in my mind about differential tuition for a while is the perception of quality based on the variances, and I think that's what we were talking about earlier. But it's just something that I wanted to mention, and I also wanted to mention that I agree with the other regents who spoke strongly about the financial aid piece. I think it's very important that we, along with improving the quality of our institutions, we ensure the equity and access. And I think without the financial aid piece, what we've done is we've increased the quality of our institution and cut people out of higher education. So I don't think that a differential tuition without a financial aid piece would really be a very equitable thing to do. So.
Regent Conley-Kiesler.
I agree that we should have some piece of financial aid. It doesn't have to be 50% necessarily, or 40%, or whatever that number is, but if we're going to do this, that's my opinion. I think the student piece is huge. 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 Thank you. Huge. You have Twitter, you have Flickr, you have Facebook, you have email, you have every way to get to them as many times as you want to get to them to get feedback. And I think we have to use those and maybe use it again. And one question I had for Brian, the first vote didn't look so good. Now you have a recommendation that's a 17-15 you're taking forward. Are you going back to the whole
Are you going back out again to all the students, or are you just taking what the student council has said now at a 17-15 vote and moving forward?
It's not our intention to go back at this point. I think that the Student Senate, a lot of those senators met with a lot of students one-on-one and got a lot of feedback that is really a subtext to a lot of the quick and easy answers on a survey. And I think they feel they have been responsive to the two major issues. Now, we still ended up at 40%, up to 40% of financial aid. But if we factor in on-campus jobs and we factor in hold harmless for, say, Pell Grant recipients or people with a certain estimated family contribution, then I think we start to meet some of the objections of students who objected on that ground. I also wanted to note that, just as an addendum to an earlier comment, that we also reached out to parents. We had we have a fairly extensive parent network of email addresses, so we've reached out twice by email. Had a lot of parents responding to the first email. A number responded to the online website. But then I did a webinar for about an hour, and we had not a lot of students dialed in at that time. It was 6 to 7 at night in the middle of the week. But that's online. You can go and look at that webinar and look at the questions the parents did submit. And we tried to respond to those at that time as well. So we understand parents pay the tuition bill for a lot of our students, and they need to be a part of the decision-making process.
One other concern I would have is, in somewhere in this document, which I cannot find today for some reason, in here was a suggestion that there only be one differential that is across the whole campus, and that you don't end up with 3, 4, 5 different differentials. La Crosse already has 2, right? You've got the $60 one and the $1,000.
In February, we'll bring them to you to consolidate.
Okay.
As per that document.
Just that concern that we do one big one and then, well, a year from now, and then we need a small one over here to deal with something else, and that we don't just keep racking up the differential tuition. So that, wherever that is in this document, talked about one that's going to be campus-wide seems to make some sense.
Thank you. Regent Spector. Oh, I'm sorry. Regent Wilmot.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was thinking the same thing as it related to the student input, and certainly we have representative bodies of students on all of our campuses. But when the proposals come to me, I will definitely be looking at certainly input from the representative body, but an effort to the entire student body in some way or another, so that the entire student body will in fact be informed and have an opportunity to engage. Now, certainly, you've got 7,000 or 8,000 students, and perhaps they won't, but I will always look at that and certainly look at the input from the representative body, but actually I will also be looking at the opportunity for the students to have been informed and to have an opportunity to engage in all of these things. And the other thing that I would also be looking at would be a historical reference of what the system-wide, the institutional-wide differentials are, as well as what the proposals are. I hate to look at something in isolation and say, okay, this looks really good and this is okay. I really want to see what's already out there, what are you doing, how these things are going to be modified, and how do we go forth. Because I think in an independent context, things look quite different from what they look like when in fact you're looking at everything. And I think as a representative of this board, I would be interested in looking at everything as it relates to differential tuitions. And also I think we need to be reminded that it is adding to the affordability problem, and we still have an F. Thank you.
Thank you. Regent Spector. Regent Davis was here and sort of did the whole thing.
He's very unfair to me. 2 quick points. One, somewhere in the papers, and I commented on it to Tom at some point, but I'll just say it again, is this potential differentiation between giving weight to student comment between resident and non-resident students, and I want to make a strong pitch, if that really is a possibility, against that. I think that there are numerous examples in the Wisconsin statutes in the K-12 area where once a student who is a non-resident student becomes a part of a school, they're treated like everyone else in every way. They have the same rights and responsibilities, whether it be Chapter 220 or open enrollment or whatever it may be. And I think that is a good policy thing to do here, because I think if you create a class of students who aren't treated the same, it just merely makes them feel more isolated from what you're doing. In this case, I think our non-resident students, who are a substantial number at some of the schools, provide a vital counterpoint in some cases to the resident students, a mutual educational process. And I hope we don't alienate them in any way, especially since I assume it's difficult to figure out who's really a resident and non-resident when you're asking them what they think of something. The other thing is, I think we should think about parents in a different way. We define hold harmless, it seems like whenever we use that phrase, always in terms of someone doesn't have to pay more if they fall into a certain category of measuring a need for aid. But I think we should think about people who are planning ahead who won't benefit from that, who will pay the full tuition, whatever it might be. A parent who says for their freshman student, as Mark was saying, well, here's what we can anticipate. And either we have to tell them very clearly up front that differential tuitions may come during along the way, that 4 to 6 year period, or we have to build something in that protects those who are already there paying a certain amount with the expectation that would be the amount plus 5.5% or whatever the increase has been over time. But if you put another layer on top and don't think about either having communicated with them or exempting them, I think that creates a real problem and may lead to some people opting for other opportunities who wouldn't do so if it weren't for that. I think people do plan ahead, particularly if they have multiple children going to college at the same time. It's a very expensive proposition. Thank you.
Just wanted to suggest that chancellors don't think as a monolithic group, and to suggest that this particular discussion of differential tuition, these are all very smart people. I'm sure we could come up with a differential tuition scheme for each of our campuses, tailored to our needs and get the support of students. What I caution you in these discussions is that if you leave out a discussion of GPR as it's distributed across the campuses, if you don't take into account enrollment and enrollment trends, family income, selectivity, and mission of the institutions, you're going to be creating a lot of different islands. Now, that adds a lot of complexity, obviously, to these issues. But I think there's a lot of other financial issues in terms of how resources are allocated across the campuses that have to be part of this discussion as well.
Thank you. Chancellor Martin.
I can't help myself on these issues. I really have strong feelings. I don't disagree with what Carlos is saying in principle, but if, for example, the Regents or the system in general decided to reallocate GPR because some campuses can afford to have differential tuitions, the only thing that will prevent a campus like Madison from deteriorating significantly in quality is if you let us loose and let us charge the tuition that our students can actually pay and would pay. So introduce the forms of flexibility that we don't currently have. Otherwise, you're simply going to be redistributing money in ways that promote mediocrity overall.
Chancellor Santiago. Kind of interesting.
I hate to make this a counterpoint, but in fact, you have been redistributing resources across all of these campuses over many, many years. And the GPR per student FTE is not the same as it was if I go back to 2002. The GPR per student differential between the two campuses that share a mission was much closer than it is today, to the extent that our campus, GPR per student FTE is closer to the comprehensives than to the research campuses. So you've been making distributive decisions all this time. The world has not changed. It has changed quite dramatically.
I have to add to what Carlos just said. I think The devil is in the details here, and it's how you come up with the numbers. And I think we need to have, among ourselves, a really serious conversation about what's included in these numbers. And you can come to very different conclusions about levels of funding depending on how you count what's included. And that's, I think, the discussion we will have going forward.
Well, I would like... Oh, Jessica, I'm almost going to call.
I'll try to be the peacemaker in this. Just a reminder that we... Okay.
You better do it well.
Where's Keith Oberman, right? Just that we ought to keep in mind we are nonprofit entities. And so when we do what we do with our tuition, it is not to maximize shareholder returns or value. In fact, it's to have the most excellent campus we can have, and that's going to vary for everybody. So I think what makes this challenging is we have that dimension, and then we get into the access question, which is really a serious issue, public policy issue. And I think we all can tell you what we need to have the best campus we can have for our students. That issue of how people afford to go to college, we can work on that somewhat, but we need a lot of assistance, and it's from the legislators on that issue. So I hope that we don't inhibit the quality of the campuses because we get stuck on the access question. I think we need to keep working on that. That's the one that's really, but it's going to take a lot of help at both the state and federal level. So.
Before I go to Regent Bartel, I just want to add that I think we're all in agreement on one other point, which is there is no substitute for greater GPR dollars to the University of Wisconsin. And one of the things we can get lost in some of these conversations is an appreciation of the fact that all of our campuses would benefit dramatically, and all of our students and all of our parents would benefit dramatically by a greater commitment from the state for GPR dollars and a reversal of the trend that is all too familiar to people in this room. Regent Bartel.
And as a representative of the Board of Regents on the Higher Educational Aids Board, I want you to know that the BAB has promoted that idea very strongly. I just wanted the Regents to be aware of an item that is in the minutes of the Higher Educational Aids Board meeting in October. The board has created a task force consisting of representatives of the major three sectors, the UW system, the independent colleges, and the technical colleges, to examine the manner in which need-based financial aid is allocated in this state. As you may recall, that it is now basically on a first-come, first-served basis. This task force, which has its first meeting next week, will be looking at alternatives to that methodology, and hope to reach a conclusion and make some recommendations by end of next spring.
Thank you. I think we could all agree we could talk about this for a while longer, and I appreciate all the contributions from the members of the board, chancellors, and others. Thank you to Tom and Kevin for leading this off. But unless we have a major objection, I think we probably ought to move on to the committee reports and a few other things we have to do this morning, unless anybody has anything more to say. If not, thank you all, and then we will move to the report of the Business, Finance, and Audit Committee. Regent Smith.
Business, Finance, and Audit met jointly with the Capital Planning and Budget. I think Regent Bartel is going to give us the two items presented for the first two items presented committees. I'll start out with the presentation by Julie Gordon, who briefed the committees on ways in which the UW institutions are reducing energy usage and the extent to which energy conservation efforts have been incorporated into UW institutions' broader decision-making and plans. Going right to the recommendations that Julie presented are two: pursuing additional funding opportunities for energy conservation and implementing a process for incorporating facilities-related practices into an institution-wide energy conservation strategy. We then heard a presentation on UW-Madison on the UW-Madison Student Oversight Committee, and heard a little bit about this morning, discussed their involvement in the allocation, management, and oversight of the undergraduate differential tuition plan that was introduced this fall, and they reported lots of great ideas, but they can't fund them all, and we're certainly going to hear from them more, I know, in the future as far as our oversight role. We heard from the Ad Hoc Committee on Mental Health,
Joe Gold, the co-chair of this committee and director of counseling at UW-Oshkosh, discussed the impact of mental health services on student success, an issue that we've talked a lot about in the last year here as well. He spoke about the increased demand for services, which doesn't surprise any of us, and the changes campuses have made to meet the demand and increased severity on the campuses. He then reviewed and proposed changes to the basic health module outlined in Regent Policy 23-1. We approved Resolution 12C. We then heard from Julie Gordon again on camps and clinics that are conducted at UW system institutions. I think if you read that document, you're surprised, at least I was surprised, at the number of people that participate and the amount of money involved. She came up with several recommendations regarding the camps and clinics that we sponsor. First, adapting the health requirements, the DHS. Second, extending the criminal background checks to contractors and volunteers working directly, especially with vulnerable populations such as children and people with disabilities. Requiring all camps and clinics to have accident insurance, and assigning an office or committee on campus that has the overall responsibility for policies and procedures regarding these camps. We heard from Doug Orr, the Director of Trust Funds, reviewing a number of revisions to the University of Wisconsin Trust Funds investment policy to reflect the state of Wisconsin's recent adoption of the Uniform Prudent Management Institutional Funds Act. You've got that in your packet, and that committee approved Resolution 12E. Our monthly report, or each report on the update on our human resource system from Tom. He presented information on the current status of the HRS project, and he reviewed a new format, which is very helpful, I think, to communicate progress, which includes major areas of the project. HRS is currently on time and on budget. Another familiar topic, we got back to the food service contract language. Tom updated the committee and proposed changes to the standard contract language regarding a 90-day fair trial period for current non-management employees seeking to continue employment after their transition to a new contract vendor. The committee also discussed the language that the contractors would provide immediate health insurance coverage and provide a loan program to the employees needing it. The committee wanted to be sure that bids remain competitive and the provision related to insurance be reevaluated further. The committee approved resolution, which is in your packet, without the addition on health insurance, and that's Resolution 12G. We heard about a non-medical leave of absence for unclassified staff, a change to that policy. General Counsel Brady reviewed changes to the UW system policy on non-medical leave of absence to allow chancellors to grant leaves of up to 5 years. That the committee approved Resolution 12H. And on behalf of the committee, I now move adoption of 12C, which is the report of the Ad Hoc Committee on Mental Health, 12E, which is the University of Wisconsin System Trust Fund Investment Policy Statement, 12G, which is the UW System Food Service Contract language regarding contractor and employee transitions, and 12H, UW System revisions to non-medical leave of absence.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion? Discussion. Regent Drew.
I'd like 12G pulled out separately.
Okay. There's been a request to remove 12G from the consent. Is there a second? Do we need? We don't need it. Do I need it?
We need that. No.
Okay. So we will remove that. And any request to remove any other item or any conversation on the other resolution?
The one that John has asked for is on the food service contract one.
Okay. Right. So if not, we have Resolution 1.2C, which is on the mental health provisions, 1.2E, which is on the trust funds, and 1.2H, which is on the revisions to non-medical leaves of absence. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Those resolutions are agreed to. We now move to 1.2G. Regent Drew.
Okay. I appreciate the efforts of Tom Anders and the committee to try to fix this problem. And I don't think there's anybody on this board who wants to see food service workers on our campuses who happen to be caught in a change of vendors lose their health insurance for up to 90 days, possibly be subject to a wage cut, and also be subject to arbitrary termination during the period when that new vendor comes in. And frankly, there's an easy way to fix that, and I've discussed this before. In all the RFPs for this type of thing, they included the language that the new vendor would have to accept the existing labor contract where a labor contract is in place, would take care of these issues. I know the committee struggled with the issue of providing health care coverage during the transition period and wasn't really able to come up with a solution. To me, it's fairly straightforward. We can fix this wrong, which I don't think anybody really intends to be there, but it exists. And the way to fix it is by merely requiring the incumbent vendor to be on the same playing field as the new vendor to be on the same playing field as the incumbent would be. And I think this also would apply to evaluating the bids, that they're both bidding on the same thing for the period that that labor agreement is in place. So, we're talking about $10 an hour workers. We're talking about taking away that uncertainty about whether they're going to keep their jobs, whether they're going to have health insurance, whether they're going to suffer a wage cut. We can do it, and I don't see why we don't. And for that reason, I appreciate the 90-day fair trial period that's included, but I don't think we've gone far enough with this policy.
Other comments? Regent Falbo.
I think we're all in agreement that because a contract expired and proposals are out and new bids are coming in, the employees didn't do anything to cause this. But on the other hand, we want to make sure we have bidders. I don't think we want to be in the food service business. And I think that as we continue to put on more restrictions in the bidding process, we may find ourselves in the food service business probably again. I'm sure at one point we were and figured out that that's not what we were good at doing, and the professionals in that business were better at it than we were. So it's kind of a struggle to balance this thing from the standpoint of we don't want to hurt the existing employees. They didn't do anything to cause this. And that's, John, why we asked for more work to be done on the health insurance piece, because of that loan, the addition of a loan program. Health insurance is extremely expensive, and to make a loan to an employee making $10 an hour for their 3-month COBRA payment is a big deal. So we thought maybe there was a better way. And I think one of the ways may be that we consider covering that. It's a 7-year contract. We're talking about 3 months of premiums that we consider finding a way either through reduced reimbursement for those 3 months from the vendors, or some other way that we just make sure that that amount is covered. But I'm just, if we start now requiring contracts to be pushed onto new vendors, I'm afraid we're going to find ourselves in the food service.
Regent Wingate. I can just say from sitting on the committee, I think the idea of securing continuity and benefits for someone in the same exact position, just under a new provider, is a topic worth pursuing, but it's full, as our conversations went yesterday, full of unanswered questions and implications that in making a hasty decision could lead to a lot of complications at this point. And so I would ask that we can come back to it, if we don't decide anything today on the full board, we can come back to it at the next meeting and see if we can do some research into exactly what the implications of a health insurance policy or the kind of answers we were coming up with yesterday, and address them at the next board meeting.
One final point. I would be very surprised if these large food service vendors who are nationwide and sometimes international companies and are looking at a 7-year contract with the UW institution would not bid on the contract because they had to assume a labor contract for a period of that 7-year contract.
And that's why we're going back to get more information.
Other comments? If not, are we prepared to vote on Resolution 1.2G? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no?
No.
The resolution is agreed to.
Please, my report.
Thank you. Regent Smith. We now move to the report of the Capital Planning and Budget Committee. Regent Bartel.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee met jointly with Business Finance and Audit, as Regent Smith reported. We had 3 reports, one of which he's already described. In the two others, Chancellor Wilson and his colleagues from UW colleges presented its annual report on city and county financial support of the UW colleges, and it was a very impressive report. Also, the UW system staff reported on energy conservation and renewable energy projects. Our committee had requested this report to clarify what challenges we face in meeting the state's renewable energy goals. We then convened separately, members of our committee, our Regents Drew, Stan Davis, Loftus, and Opgenrod, Regents Pruitt and Spector also participated, and we listened first of all to UW-Madison Director of Campus Planning, Gary Brown, who provided us with a presentation of the update on the progress the campus has made in implementing its 2005 20-year campus master plan. Then we took up a number of resolutions. I'll describe them briefly. They're in your materials. 1.3.E requests authority to seek a waiver to enable Madison Gas and Electric to design build a UW-Madison Walnut substation upgrade project, and authority to construct that project for an estimated $4.6 million. It will provide additional power for energy-intensive medical and research programs that are housed in facilities located on the West Campus. Resolution 1.3.F requests authority to UW-Madison to lease space for the McBurney Disability Resource Center and the Division of Enrollment Management in the new University Square area. The lease term will be 10 years with 2 5-year renewals and a purchase option that will begin in July of 2015. The developer will design and build out the space for the campus, which will use gift funds and savings resulting from other projects to pay for the tenant improvements. No tuition dollars or GPR funds are involved in this lease. Resolution 1.3.G requests authority to increase the budget of the $66 million UW-Madison Microbial Sciences building project by about $392,000 or 3.3% to add critical air intake improvements to the mechanical systems. Resolution 1.3.H requests authority to construct the central chiller installation project at UW-Milwaukee at a total cost of $6.4 million. This project will add reserve capacity to the chilled water system and add additional higher efficiency cooling capacity to provide adequate future reserves. Committee spent most of the time on Resolution 1.3.I, which grants authority to seek enumeration of the School of Freshwater Sciences Research Building at $50 million general fund supported borrowing, most of which is in the current biennium. This 125,000 square foot addition to the UW-Milwaukee's existing Great Lakes Research Facility, which I understand is referred to as GLRF, on Greenfield Avenue at the lakeshore in southeast portion of Milwaukee, will be the initial project of the UW-Milwaukee Master Plan Initiative. The Master Plan Initiative, as you recall, was adopted in our 2009-11 biennial budget and requires legislative enumeration of specific projects prior to the release of funds, this being the first. Enumeration of freshwater sciences building will expend $50 million of the $123.4 million general fund supported borrowing contained in this initiative. And we expect that the remaining $73.4 million plus $55.6 million of program revenue supported borrowing and roughly $60 million in gifts and grants will be allocated to additional projects in the Master Plan Initiative in a request that will be brought before this board in January at our special meeting. Freshwater Sciences Project has the potential opportunity to secure private gifts and grants, and should those opportunities be realized, that funding will be substituted for the state funding, and that state funding would then be redirected to other priority projects in the UWM Master Plan Initiative. The other projects under consideration, you will recall, and that we will discuss next time, are replacing the Niskay research vessel, which is a boat, Kenwood, which is connected with the Freshwater Research Center, Kenwood Integrated Research Complex, Phase 1, the Innovation Park Research Facilities in Wauwatosa, the Public Community and Clinical Health Center in downtown Milwaukee, Phase 1, and the Columbia St. Mary's acquisition. Resolution 1.3.J requests authority to construct all agency maintenance and repair projects that address energy conservation, fire egress and security improvements, utility upgrades at various campuses. It includes an integrated system for the production and demonstration of bioenergy at the Pioneer Farm at UW-Platteville. This was a very interesting project. The committee was impressed by a presentation by Platteville professors Chris Baxter and Tim Zauke concerning the potential benefits of this unique energy system that makes use of cow manure and oil seeds and wastes almost nothing in the process. It offers outstanding research and educational opportunities, as well as the possibility of replacing energy provided to that campus. So these 6 resolutions were passed unanimously by the committee, and I move adoption of resolutions 1.3.E, F, G, H, I, and J.
Those have been moved. Second?
Need to request having item I3E removed from the consent agenda.
You want to move, I'm sorry, I?
I3E. And I should also note that that one did pass unanimously.
Sorry, with an abstention by Regent Davis.
Okay, so I3E has been removed. Any other, the motion was seconded by Regent Spector. Any other items to be removed? If not, we will vote on approval of all but I3E. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those are agreed to. We now move to I.3E. 1.3E.
I move the adoption of that.
Okay. All those in favor of 1.3E, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Regent Davis. Thank you. Back to you.
That concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you. We now move to the report of the Education Committee. Regent Crane.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yesterday, the committee met in the afternoon and dealt with a number of important issues. The first being the AODA report for the UW system. We had an excellent presentation by the AODA committee, one of their primary activities has been the development and administration of the AODA survey, which has been given to UW students 3 times since '05 and most recently in '09 this year. The Education Committee was briefed yesterday on the results by Mark Mayu, who is an institutional researcher at UW-Platteville, and his presentation was excellent. He gave us a lot of understanding. The results of the survey, and I would very much encourage you to look at the materials in your advanced materials, because there is an excellent description of what came out of the survey. And there is guarded optimism out of this year's survey, because it appears that the incidence of binge drinking, while disturbingly high in our culture, seems to be declining. But there are some differences in the way that in the questions of the earlier surveys and the '09 surveys, so this will need to be carefully watched in the next survey to see if, in fact, that's borne out. We heard from UW Parkside Chancellor Debbie Ford, who is the new chairman of the UW System AODA Committee, and also from Matt Vogel, who is a community health specialist and adjunct instructor at UW-La Crosse. And he enabled us, all of us who were in the room, using clicker technology to help us put our own feed into very sensitive and personal discussions. And the results of that, even as we took it, were very interesting and made a compelling case for how to engage students and others in active engagement of this issue on campus behaviors. We also discussed other drug abuse, and it was agreed that this is a tough subject, but that this work of this committee and the efforts that are being made on our campuses is absolutely essential, especially in this drinking culture that we have in our state. So we will continue to monitor this, and we appreciated the discussion that took place yesterday. We then talked about a policy on advanced standing credit for Project Lead the Way courses, and the committee was asked to approve a policy allowing students to receive advanced standing credit at UW institutions for Project Lead the Way courses that they took in high school. This is an engineering and technology-focused curriculum for middle and high school students and for middle and high schools, and it's currently being offered not only across the country but in 132 high schools and 74 middle schools in our state. There have been two major developments that lead to this policy. One, in consultation with the DPI, it was decided that all UW institutions would accept at least one Project Lead the Way course for high school science credit, as long as the other two were from biology, chemistry, or physics. And secondly, the policy was drafted by which UW institutions would offer advanced standing credit for Project Lead the Way courses. We believe that this policy helps to meet the needs both of students who are entering our UW institutions and of the institutions themselves to ensure appropriate preparation of admitted students in the integrity of curricular and majors. The committee agreed with Senior Vice President Martin that this policy, we believe, is student-friendly, advances preparation in STEM areas, and involves a strong partnership among multiple sectors, including the UW system and Wisconsin high schools. So that will be part of the consent agenda. We had a very fine presentation from UW-Madison Provost Paul DeLuca on the Madison Ensuring Innovation in Education, Research, and Service. It was, I think, parallel and continuation of what we heard from Chancellor Martin in the morning. There was a lot of information into the Provost's presentation, and the committee was highly interested and very excited about what's going on the Madison campus. There was discussion led by Vice President Martin about the UW system's interim guidelines for making textbooks affordable. You will all remember this discussion. The interim policy is in effect, and the progress is being made in coming to a final policy that will come in the spring of the next year in 2010. We also talked about the programs in nursing and clinical laboratory science programs that have been a matter of discussion at this board level and elsewhere in the last couple of months, and that one centering on nursing, the nursing at UW Stevens Point in conjunction with the other institutions offering nursing programs, and with the impending closure of UW-Madison's clinical laboratory science program, and adjustments that are being made throughout the system in order to accommodate the need that was currently met by that program. With those, having reviewed those items that received great discussion, I will now present the consent agenda, which includes Resolution 11B2 that authorizes implementation of the Bachelor of Science in Supply Chain Management at UW-South. There is information about that program in your advanced materials. Resolution 11B3 authorizing implementation of the MS in Medical Dosimetry at UW-La Crosse. Again, that was summarized in your materials. Resolution 11B4 approving revisions to the faculty personnel rules at UW-Oshkosh. And Resolution 11C adopting the policy on advanced standing credit for Project Lead the Way courses. I present those for approval.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a request to remove any item from the consent agenda? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Okay. Anything else from the
That's
education?
it.
Thank you very much. And I want to congratulate all the committees for doing in 30 minutes a presentation of all your sort of work. So thank you for that. And we now move, speaking of presentations, to the presentation of the annual Teaching Excellence Awards. Regent Committee members are Regent Davis, who is the chair, Regent Bartel, Regent Drew, Regent Vasquez, and Regent Womack. Regent Davis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm very pleased to be a part of today's presentation of the Regents Teaching Excellence Awards for 2009, and would like to welcome this year's award recipients, their families, friends, and supporters. These awards represent an opportunity for the board to recognize and honor some of the UW system's most outstanding teachers, departments, and programs. I think all of us in this room understand what a valuable resource we have in our faculty and academic staff, those who day in and day out teach with dedication, creativity, and passion, and to whom we entrust the education and enlightenment of the citizens of the future. Joining me on this year's selection team were, as already previously mentioned, but I like to mention it as well, Regents Jeff Bartel, John Drew, Jose Vasquez, and Betty Womack. I thank them all for their thoughtful participation. Now, as always, the pool of nominees was truly exceptional, and selecting the award recipients was very challenging. And I must say, as always, it was inspiring and rewarding to learn more about the great work that is being done on all of our campuses. The members of the UW community we honor today are shining examples of the ability that excellent teachers have to impact students' lives. That might mean encouraging students to expand their horizons, or to trust their instincts, or to offering practical advice on how to tackle problems, or to reach certain career goals. Or perhaps we could just say it's about more. Pushing students to learn more, do more, want more, and be more. Exceptional teachers go about this in unique ways, of course, but they do tend to share several striking characteristics, and those include a distinct philosophy of teaching and learning, a willingness to adapt and innovate in order to meet the needs of students, a passion for their discipline, and a commitment to constant self-examination and improvement. This morning, we honor 2 individuals and 1 department as this year's recipients of the Regents Teaching Excellence Awards. Profiles of each of our award winners can be found in your folders and have also been distributed to everyone. I encourage you to read these profiles, for the brief remarks we make today cannot begin to do justice to the wealth of talent, dedication, and passion of the teachers we salute today. So without further ado, I will describe our first award recipient. It is my privilege to introduce our first award recipient, Dr. Donna, I did it right, Warren, an associate professor of philosophy at the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point. I'd like to share a bit about Professor Warren, and I think you'll all agree that she is the model teacher this award was meant to honor. Let me begin by quoting Professor Warren herself as she describes her philosophy of teaching. In short, she writes, by providing people with emotionally warm, psychologically safe, intellectually challenging, and carefully designed learning opportunities, either in the classroom or online, I hope to help individuals become more comfortable with ideas, and better able to understand the chains of reasoning that support them. According to all reports, she does this remarkably well. Professor Warren has taught introductory and advanced level philosophy courses on both undergraduate and graduate students since she arrived at UW-Stevens Point in 1995. According to one of her colleagues, and I quote, Dr. Warren integrates best practices of teaching and learning, crafts carefully designed exercises, develops meaningful methods of assessing student learning, and focuses on critical thinking, decision-making, and problem-solving in everyday settings. More than simply grappling with classic questions like, what does it mean to be a good person? Or does God exist? What Professor Warren really wants her students to take out of the classroom is the art of critical thinking. Donna Warren is a professor who is nationally known for her work on critical thinking and symbolic logic. She has developed tools for assessing student learning in critical thinking that are receiving regional and national recognition. In 2006, she founded the Wisconsin Association for Critical Thinking that currently serves 60 members. She also organized what is now an annual statewide conference on critical thinking across the curriculum, hosted by UW-Stevens Point. This event brings together faculty from a variety of disciplines to discuss the importance of critical thinking skills for a successful liberal education. And without further ado, it is my sincere pleasure to present to you Professor Donna Warren.
Thank you so much, Regents. Davis, I found myself wishing that I could meet the person that you were describing. To say it's an honor to be here is genuinely an understatement. I'm simply delighted beyond words to have received this recognition and to bring this award to UWSP, of which I am very proud to be a faculty member. I got a little letter saying that I was asked to say a few words, 5 to 7 minutes. I don't think I can talk for 5 to 7 minutes on this, about one or two things that helped me to sort of frame my teaching philosophy. And as I was talking to my husband, I thought, you know, when I first came to UWSP, I had never taught a philosophy course before. I'd never even TA'd one, and I'd never read an undergraduate philosophy paper that was written by anyone other than me. And my undergraduate degree was not in philosophy, it was in math. So I was terrified. I had taught undergraduate mathematics to work my way through grad school. I taught remedial math. And I liked that. I knew I loved it because my students were terrified. And I could calm them down, and I liked calming people down. And I thought, okay, this is great. I can go into a room of terrified students and help them to be less afraid. But my introductory philosophy students aren't going to be afraid of the discipline. So what do I have? Nothing. And I thought, okay, I've got to learn how to be intimidating. So I practiced. I really did this. I stood in my bathroom and I looked in the mirror, and I practiced being stern. And I imagined, what if someone asks me something, and I really need to impress them with an answer, what words could I use that would be really impressive and make them think I'm smart, and so have them respect me. And the day before I started teaching, I went to the movie Babe. Have any of you seen the movie Babe? If you haven't seen the movie Babe, you should see the movie Babe. It was one of the most profoundly influencing experiences of my life. It was a little pig who wanted to be a sheepdog and thought that the way to be a good sheepdog to herd sheep was to be very strict and very stern. And so did this, and it didn't work. And then thought, well, I'll just talk to the sheep. I'll treat the sheep with respect. And I thought, well, if it works for Babe, might as well try it. And so I walked in, and I thought, well, what I'll try to do is I'll just try to be myself. And I'll try to treat the students like I would want to be treated if I were the students. And it worked. And that's about all I do, really. I'm myself. And I try to treat the students the way I would want to be treated. And if someone were to ask me, how do you teach? How should I teach? That's about all I would say. It's about an encounter with individual people, not thinking of them as homogenous 18 to 22-year-olds. Getting to know them, being myself, demonstrating one way to be a person in a position of authority, demonstrating that you don't need to be tough, that it's okay to be yourself. And I could not be more delighted that my students seem to enjoy my classes and that I am here today to receive this award on behalf of them, my colleagues in UWSP. Thank you very much.
Well, it's my privilege to introduce our next Regents Teaching Excellence Award winner, Dr. Michael Cox, Professor of Biochemistry at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. To those who know Professor Cox, it comes as little surprise that he should receive this award. Indeed, we are hardly the first to recognize the outstanding nature of his commitment to the students and profession of biochemistry over his 25 years of teaching, research, and service at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. He was the recipient of numerous honors and awards over the years, including most recently the Worf-Kellett Mid-Career Faculty Research Award. But Professor Cox is renowned more than anything for being a dedicated and gifted lecturer, someone who approaches his teaching with energy and enthusiasm. Professor Cox has earned a reputation for treating students with respect, as we've heard, and genuine interest. Over the years, he has also recognized the potential of undergraduate student research and developed a special lab program to foster it. Now, we've mentioned that outstanding teachers seem to be able to kindle their students' curiosity and their desire to do more. That certainly describes Dr. Cox according to his students. One put it like this, and I'm quoting, "He sets a reasonable goal and makes me want to work my hardest to reach it, not just for him, but for a shared love of science and the experience of doing something that hasn't been done." The students are not alone in their admiration and respect for Professor Cox. One of his colleagues said, and again I quote, "I've known many of his undergraduates, and I would say that no mentor in biochemistry has done a better job with undergraduates. Many of his students are as effective in their senior year of college as is a typical second-year graduate student." Well, notwithstanding all of this well-deserved acknowledgement of Professor Cox for his passion for teaching, I must tell you that we, the committee, are gratified to report that that passion and that ability to motivate students appears in faculty throughout the system. But what is unique is Professor Cox's ability to teach students, to learn, and to excel. Also, to be sure, Professor Cox is nationally recognized for his extensive research in biochemistry, as evidenced by numerous refereed journal articles, invited reviews, book chapters, and symposia articles, and he has 3 patents. Yet that scholarship remains focused on undergraduate teaching and learning as well. His co-authored textbook, Leininger Principles of Biochemistry, is now in its 5th edition. It has been translated into 12 languages and is considered the most widely used undergraduate biochemistry textbook in the world. And if that's not enough, he is a consummate multitasker. He has even gotten involved in overseeing the design and construction of the biochemistry Phase 1 and Phase 2 building projects on this campus, where his attention to details will be more fully recognized and appreciated when the doors open in 2011. Elizabeth Craig, who's the Steenbach Professor and Chair of Biochemistry, calls Dr. Cox one of our most distinguished senior professors and a major contributor to the university's prestige and renown. The secret to his success, if there is one, is actually quite simple. As Professor Cox himself puts it, if there is one key characteristic for successful teaching, it is simply to care about the students. If students can rely on you for fairness and know that you will be there when they need you, courses, even courses with 200 students, work out pretty well. And with a teacher like Professor Cox, it's easy to see why. I might even observe that if Professor Cox had taught me as an undergraduate here, I might have ended up as a biochemist instead of a lawyer. Might have been all right. On that note, it is my pleasure to introduce our second Teaching Excellence Award winner, Dr. Michael Cox. Professor?
Much to say after that. I'd like to thank the Board of Regents and the UW system and everybody from Madison on up that participated in this nomination process. I am very happy to receive this award and be recognized, obviously. When I came here actually 27 years ago, actually almost to the day, I arrived without any experience or training in teaching whatsoever. When you go through a science background and you go to graduate school and through a postdoc, you really don't get a chance to do much teaching on the way through. And when I got here, frankly, I was most focused on getting my research program up and started, and the idea of facing several hundred students in teaching really sort of intimidated me. So whatever success I've had in teaching, I really attribute to three things. One is the mentoring that I received from Dave Nelson. He was a teacher that I was paired with when I first came here. And Dave himself is really an extraordinary teacher. And I was really lucky to be paired with him early on. Dave's won several teaching awards on his own, and I think some of you are aware of his efforts. But Dave taught me a great deal about what I learned, about what I know about teaching. And it was a really great experience to learn from him. The second thing is the simple fact that the students in Wisconsin are fabulous. I mean, they're just fabulous, and they deserve your very best efforts every single day. And, you know, I like the fact that I get ideas from my students every year. I do my best to incorporate them in everything I do. And it's just been a wonderful, wonderful experience interacting with them, and a privilege to interact with them all through this process. And the third thing is simply the support of my family. My wife, Beth, is here, and my sons have endured quite a few lost evenings, and I appreciate all their efforts. So that's all I want to say today. Thank you.
I'm very pleased today to present the 2009 Regents Teaching Excellence Award for a department or program to the University of Wisconsin Parkside Theater Arts Department. Representing the department today is its dynamic chair and artistic director, Associate Professor Dean Yonk. Parkside's Theater Arts Department is a perfect example of good things coming in small packages. With just 5 tenured faculty members and 3 artists and theater staff, the department currently serves 60 theater majors and 10 theater arts minors in a highly competitive, hands-on theater production program. They produce about 24 shows a year, including 4 to 5 fully staged productions, 4 to 5 staged readings, about a dozen one-act plays produced by students, and 2 fully staged productions completely created by students in the Drama Club service organization. The program has amassed a growing collection of awards and regional and national recognition. In recent years, the department has also put considerable effort into increasing student retention. To that end, in 2005, the department launched a peer mentoring program, particularly geared to new freshmen and transfer students. Those efforts have proved very successful. After 3 years, the retention rate for new freshmen and transfer students in the theater program has increased from 65% to 98%. But the program ultimately is about much more than just training students to become actors, especially given the fact that just 5% of professional actors are actually employed at any one time. The real mission, the department says, is to foster well-rounded students who have the ability to think critically, communicate effectively, and problem-solve successfully, as well as thrive creatively. It is my great honor, then, to present this Regents Excellence in Teaching Award to the UW Parkside Theater Arts Department. Professor Young.
I'm glad there was a problem with me turning the award the right way because it gave us more applause, and theater people love that. I would like to thank Regent Drews a great deal, especially since he took time out of his very busy schedule to travel down to Parkside and spend a whole morning with our department, with faculty, with staff, with our administration, touring our facilities, looking at our plans for our amazing new $28 million fine arts edition that's happening. And we just thank you so much for taking the time, and we thank Regent Davis and all those who gave us this award. I have to say that I have 2 wonderful colleagues with me today. Professor Lisa Kornetsky, who is our Director of Theater Education and Outreach for the department, and Professor Skelly Warren, our most senior faculty member, I'd like to point out. And Skelly is our Technical Director and our Production Director for our company. I've been asked by some of the faculty and staff, the 75 that are in our, not department, we don't use the term department, we use the term company, and I'll explain that in a minute. All 70 or so wanted to be here today. They are currently closing in the final moments of Arthur Miller's amazing play, All My Sons, and I think the lead character is about 5 minutes from killing himself. I'm sorry if I just gave away the plot of a great play. But I don't think that we could have done All My Sons in this space, nor do I think you would have wanted 70 theater majors in the room. And we are thrilled, though, to have our theater today filled with prospective students and their parents from throughout Wisconsin, Illinois, Minnesota, and Iowa who are seeking entrance into our program, a program that now draws students from all over the Midwest. And so we're thrilled that we're doing a free performance today for prospective students of one of the greatest American dramas ever written. Normally, theater people dream of someday getting a Tony Award or an Oscar, perhaps, in film. Hardly ever, I think, did Skelly, Lisa, or I, or any of us think we'd be here getting a Teaching Excellence Award, and it's really humbling. I want to point out that at least based on the website for the Regents Award, we are not only the first UW Parkside program to get this award, which is a great honor to us because we have many great academic programs at Parkside. We're also the first theater program to ever win this award, and perhaps more significantly, at least to us, we are the first fine arts department to ever win this award. Yesterday, President Obama, in the midst of making various speeches about Nobel Peace Prizes and war, issued a statement about the value of arts and said that arts were absolutely critical for the advancement of American culture and civilization and knowledge. And we are just so thrilled that the Board of Regents Committee has recognized that not only science programs or programs in the basic academic disciplines are worthy of recognition. The fact that we have thriving theater programs and dance programs and music programs and art programs is critical, we believe, to making a well-rounded American future where we can all express our culture and our beliefs. We've been asked to talk about a couple of things that make our department distinct. And so I've highlighted, with the help of my colleagues, some things that make us distinct. Although, of course, you realize that with 70 theater people in a company, we're all distinct, and we're a lot of really distinct people. One thing that we have done in recent years at Parkside is stress that our students are first and foremost students, and that their academic achievement is paramount to anything else. In fact, we have very high academic standards for getting into the program. We have higher academic standards for students to stay in the program. They must maintain a 2.5 overall and a 2.75 within the theater discipline, or they are removed from production work, which of course to them is very important. We literally demand that they put their classes and their academics across the curriculum first. And as a result, our students have emerged with our majors. They have an average ACT currently of about 26, which is significantly higher than the rest of our campus for the most part. Students in our department, 25% graduate from our program with high honors. And so that is absolutely paramount. And we've now achieved over 90% graduation rate from freshman year through graduation. And again, that is really important. But I want to stress that we're not, and when I mentioned we don't call ourselves a department, we got rid of that term because really we see ourselves as a company, a collaborative company, and we function much like the Milwaukee Rep, who is our close professional partner, Milwaukee Chamber, American Players Theater in Spring Green. We work with those professional companies constantly. For 24 years, we have been a professional partner with the Fireside Theater in Fort Atkinson. Our model is one of a company, and that means that the students, the faculty, and the staff work together to take what we learn in the classroom and apply it directly and hands-on, jointly together in the rehearsal hall or in the performance space. So, on a typical production week, like last week as All My Sons was getting ready to open, the faculty and staff were working side by side with the students for about 60 hours that given week. We have constant contact with them, and we're working collaboratively as joint learners and joint creators. And I think that's really the key to our success. A couple of other things are we do, as I mentioned, have high academic standards, and we have entry to the program by audition and interview only. And that might sound exclusive, but here's what it does. Today, the remaining faculty who aren't here are actually interviewing right now 7 students from UW two-year campuses that want to transfer to Parkside in January, as well as a number of high school students that want to begin their education at Parkside in the fall. We sit down with them, a group of 3 or 4 faculty, one-on-one for at least a half hour, and we find out about that student's dreams, their goals, their backgrounds, their aspirations. If we don't think that student is a great fit for our program, we let them know that. And so we know them from the beginning. And as soon as they're accepted in the program, they are assigned one of our outstanding returning freshmen or sophomores who are succeeding in the program and volunteer to be a peer mentor. So starting in April already, the incoming students of next year are assigned a really exceptional student who is already excelling in the program, and that has led to an amazing success rate for us. I could go on about different things we do, academic reviews each year, talent reviews each year, but we really are focused on comprehensive advising through their exit interviews as seniors when they graduate. And, to have about a 90% placement rate in theater is amazing. Our design tech students almost all get placed in their fields. Those poor struggling actors with dreams, we train them well so that they have day jobs that pay as they're doing their acting jobs at night, and ultimately many of them are successful as actors. The company model, again, in our partnerships with Milwaukee Rep, Milwaukee Chamber, American Players Theater, has just been amazing. I just want to tell you that we believe that each and every one of our students should be working in a professional theater before graduation. Last summer, 57% of our students were working in professional theater companies over the summer. We want every student to have internships, apprenticeships, and to be working. We can't just graduate theater majors, a very kind of uncertain field, without having them had a link to the profession that they want to do before they graduate. So that's been really important. And lastly, we're thrilled about our new building. We thank anyone in here who was helpful in getting our amazing new Communication Arts edition made. And we would love to have you. You can't make it to see all my sons, but we're planning a really great season for next year, and hopefully sometime you can come down, because really, in order to appreciate the award, you need to come down and meet our students and see our productions. So thank you.
Thank you, Regent Davis, and thank you to your colleagues for once again choosing a most remarkable group of winners. We now move to a resolution of appreciation to Judith Temby. I would like to call on Regent David Walsh, who's already up there.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a resolution to read from a person even more important than Chuck Pruitt. And then Mark Bradley is going to handle something from the board. And this is for Judy Temby. Would you come up here? I'm not going to let you sit way back there. She's been enjoying the meeting because she hasn't had to worry about a thing. Come on up here, Judy. You know, this is a huge enterprise, the University of Wisconsin system. We educate each year 178,500 students. We do that on 26 campuses. Our budget is $4.9 billion. And each year we graduate about 35,000 students. This is a huge enterprise. And we've been in existence since 1974. And of those 35 years, for 29 years, Judy Temby was the secretary to the Board of Regents. She has served 106 regents, 106, 17 presidents, and 5 of the 6 system presidents. And in a sense, Judy has been the oil and the institutional memory of this large enterprise. And I want to personally say thank you, Judy. Thank you for your calm demeanor, your great leadership, your quiet confidence. The success of this enterprise is your success. And we're going to miss you, and I'm going to miss you. This is the person who calmly told me one day, "You missed the picture." I have never been scolded like that so calmly. And that's why one of the pictures doesn't have me in it. I have a resolution to read. Whereas Judith A. Temby has served with dedication and excellence for 29 years as the Secretary of the Board of Regents of the University of Wisconsin System, the 8th largest public university system in the country. And whereas she has expertly assisted the board as it has upheld its commitment to provide quality education and teaching experiences for hundreds of thousands of students. And whereas Secretary Temby has worked diligently and conscientiously to oversee arrangements for all Regents meetings, consulting with Regent President, Vice President, committee chairs, system president, and others to plan and publish agendas, materials, and public notices. And whereas she has capably held the position of custodian of the board's records that make the board's work more accessible, and in that capacity has witnessed significant technological advances, including searchable, electronically archived minutes and live web streaming of full board meetings. And whereas Secretary Temby has served 17 regent presidents, 105 regents, and worked with 5 of the 6 UW assistant presidents, including serving on the President's cabinet. And whereas she is a proud alumna of UW-Madison, holding a Bachelor of Arts degree in political science, and whereas she has devoted her career to public service, and working 3 years in Milwaukee as an adjudicator for the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, and serving more than 7 years in the Wisconsin Governor's Office as office manager and appointments directors for Governors Patrick J. Lucey and Martin Schreiber, and was probably the architect of the merger but won't admit it. Anything for a job, Judy. Whereas Judith has provided staff support to and served as secretary for numerous regent committees, including the Executive Committee, the Personal Matters Review Committee, the Committee on Student Discipline and Student Governance Appeals, Regents hearing panels, and special regent committees which have helped select new leadership for UW institutions, shape board priorities, set benchmarks for best practices, and bestowed awards for faculty, staff, and program excellence. And whereas the state of Wisconsin recognizes Judith Temby as a skillful, accomplished, and dedicated public servant who has helped the Board of Regents fulfill the spirit of the Wisconsin idea, now therefore, I, Jim Doyle, Governor of the State of Wisconsin, do hereby commend Judith A. Temby and acknowledge her remarkable achievements and many contributions to the State of Wisconsin and the University of Wisconsin system. Mark it. Oh.
Good afternoon. Hi, Judy. For the past 29 years, presidents of the Board of Regents have received a morning call from Judy Temby as secretary of the board that went something like this. Hello, Mark. This is Judy Temby. I hope you're doing well. Now, Mark, I'm sure you've given this some thought, but just in case, I thought I would mention, and then Judy would go on and discuss whatever issue was at hand. Now, once, maybe twice, the president had actually thought about whatever this issue was. But the rest of the times, I can assure you that the president was extremely grateful that Judy had thought ahead. She knew what needed to be done, and she told the president she told the president about it in a way that made the president think that it was his idea in the first place. Now, this aspect of Judy Temby's service to the Board of Regents was really nothing short of a virtuoso performance. In fact, if Judy Temby worked for God, this is how a typical morning conversation might go. Judy, of course, would have been thinking ahead and anticipating what God might need for the day, and then she would initiate the call. Good morning, God. This is Judy Temby. I hope you're doing well. And then Judy would have her list at hand, and she would say, I'm sure you've given this some thought, but just to be sure, I wanted to mention that Jerry Falwell has asked to speak at your meeting this morning with the Popes and Billy Graham. And God would respond, oh, for Pete's sake, that Jerry Falwell will be the death of me yet. You know, it's bad enough that the popes go on, and Billy Graham tries to tell me about scriptures. Imagine that he's quoting scripture to me. If I let Jerry Falwell speak, we'll go past noon, and nobody likes to go past noon. He said, I don't know what I ought to do. And after a pause, Judy would say, well, I've heard Mother Teresa speak once. That's it, God says. That's brilliant. What a great idea. Everybody will like that decision. I'll just have Mother Teresa be the only speaker. He said, that's a perfect choice. And then Judy would say, well, I'm sure everyone would like it. After all, you are God. So that's what it's like working with Judy. But now, you ask any other former president, and he'll tell you that's exactly what it's like working with Judy Temby. But don't just take my word for it. Listen to what each other living president of the Board of Regents has had to say. Let's start with David Beckwith, who was president of the Board of Regents before Regent Opgenorth or Regent Wingad were even born. David Beckwith said, in every institution of the size and scope of the Board of Regents, you will find an intelligent and diligent staff member who understands the importance of the institution and what is required to ensure its success. In the period in which I had the privilege to serve the university from Van Hise Hall, Judy Temby was that person. We could not have asked for more. Tom Lyon, who told me that he was a card-carrying member of the Judy Temby fan club, said, few people have the composite of abilities and temperament to guide a very public body through many difficult and sometimes controversial issues as Judy Temby. She did so without ever seeking personal recognition. And beyond her professional career, Judy, along with her husband Jack, adopted 3 infant daughters from Columbia and raised them to be well-educated and productive citizens. That is the true test of her heart and her humanity. Mike Grebe, who served as president of the board for 3 years, observed this. During my tenure on the Board of Regents, Judy was the glue that held us all together. All of us are grateful to her for her steadfast devotion to the UW system and her thoughtful attention to the Board of Regents. Responding to Judy's retirement, Sheldon Lubar said, "It will never be the same. Somehow, the Board of Regents will have to find Judy Temby's successor. The alternative is chaos." Now, of course, as President Pruitt announced this morning, we have since found Judy Temby's successor in Jane Rideau, and I can tell you, Jane, that no one is happier about our choice than Judy Temby. San Orr, who was the first board president to hail from Wausau, said, "Judy Temby was a superb administrator. She was always reliable and willing to undertake any task. Most importantly, she was the institutional memory of the Board of Regents." Here's what Jay Smith, the most humble of the former presidents, he said, "I am grateful for Judy Temby's valuable counsel over the years. I extend my heartfelt appreciation to her on her retirement. And I also appreciate the fact that she always considered me to be her favorite Regent president." Guy Gottschalk, who is somewhat more humble than Regent Smith, offered these comments. "I learned a great deal about grace and decorum from Judy Temby. She has been a tremendous asset to the Board of Regents, and the UW system is a far better institution thanks to her countless contributions." Toby Markovich, never at a loss for words, was uncharacteristically succinct. He said, "Regents come and regents go, but through it all, the board has had a stable anchor, and that has been the unflappable Judy Temby." And the last word goes to my predecessor, David Walsh, who had this to say, "No one was as important to the orderly operation of the Board of Regents as Judy. Her organizational skills, patience, and calming demeanor were as important to our meetings as was any of the leadership abilities of the officers. Most important, her institutional knowledge of our procedures, rules, and history was unsurpassed, and when she spoke, we listened. We will miss her." Now, Judy, I made reference a moment ago to Mother Teresa. She was talking to a group of people about the need to show love and compassion. And she concluded her remarks by saying, "Let no one ever come to you without leaving happier." And all of the regents, Judy, over the years have come to you, and we have all left happier. So Mother Teresa would be very proud. And now I want to present a resolution on behalf of the Board of Regents. Whereas Judith A. Temby has served as the 4th Secretary of the Board of Regents of the University of Wisconsin System from June 1980 to November 2009, and whereas she is the longest-serving Secretary of the Board, having served the Board for 29 years of the UW System's 38-year history, And whereas she has capably and efficiently assisted 17 board presidents, 105 regents, and 5 of the 6 UW system presidents in conducting and managing board business, ensuring the utmost integrity and governance of an internationally recognized public university system, and whereas Judith's professionalism, experience, and gift for composure have inspired trust and confidence in new and veteran board members and greatly contributed to meetings and board business running smoothly and productively, and whereas she has been the creator and custodian of comprehensive minutes, legal documents, and other records, preserving the important history, policies, decisions, and discussions of the board, and whereas the board wishes Judith well as she looks forward to a well-deserved retirement to enjoy more time with her husband, Jack Temby, and their 3 daughters, as well as to pursue many personal and volunteer interests, be it therefore resolved that the Board of Regents of the University of Wisconsin System hereby offers sincere gratitude and commendation to Judith A. Temby for her considerable life achievements, her outstanding support of the Board of Regents, and her dedicated service to the citizens of Wisconsin. Signed, Charles Pruitt, President of the University of Wisconsin System Board of Regents.
Thank you so much, Mark, David, and others for all those kind words. I am truly humbled. I cannot begin to say what a joy and honor it has been to have worked as Secretary of the Board of Regents for the past 29 years. During that time, I have been greatly impressed by the extent to which board members have demonstrated their deep commitment to public higher education and their willingness to unselfishly give so much of their time and talent to leading this great university system. I want to thank the Regents, President Past, President Riley, former President Lyle, the Chancellors, and colleagues at System Administration and the UW institutions for all of your friendship and support over the years, but most importantly of all, for everything that you have done to make Wisconsin a better place by providing students with the excellent education that they need to make a better future for all of us. So, I salute you for your outstanding leadership and service, and I wish you the very best as you continue to lead the University of Wisconsin system into the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, David. Thank you, Mark. And thank you, Judy. We will let the record show that this resolution was approved by acclamation, or we will beat the crap out of you. We will thank you, Judy. And we are looking forward to the rescheduling of a gathering to honor Judy that was originally planned for Wednesday night, and we will be looking forward to doing that sometime in the new year. I will now turn for a resolution of appreciation to UW-Madison to Regent Craig.
One more comment about Judy. When I first met Judy, it was over 29 years ago when she worked for a governor, and I was interviewed by her as a possible regent. I was not selected. I don't know what role she had in that, but I wasn't ready. And when I was when I did become a regent and found her in the office of the Board of Regents, I can't tell you what a joy that was, because I remembered her all those years. Thank you, Judy. I am going to be offering the resolution of thanks for the hosting of this meeting to the UW-Madison. And I want to make a couple of comments. One is that the resolution was drafted before the weather. And so I do think that we ought to make acknowledgement that extraordinary effort had to be made for this meeting and changing many things because of the weather, and it has been just a wonderfully moving meeting. I also want to personally thank, on behalf of myself and I'm sure of my colleagues, for the interchange with students, especially last evening, and the wonderful student performances. They were awesome, and it was very special. I also want to say that I am a daughter of this university. I graduated with a Bachelor of Arts 50 years ago in 1959. And I was an East Sider from the intellectually superior East Side of Madison. Lived at home for my 4 years, and came by bus, Madison City bus, to class every day. I spent much time in this building. It's very special to me that this meeting is in this building because I was very involved in the union, and as you went up the stairs and could feel those steps, some of the indentations were from me. I was in a program called the Integrated Liberal Studies. That was just wonderful. Became a history major and was privileged to study under the giants, Professors George Mossey, Michael Petrovich, and William Appleman Williams. Part of what I am today is because of this university, and I am very grateful. And now I will read the resolution. Heartfelt. Whereas the University of Wisconsin-Madison is a preeminent public research and teaching institution and an extraordinary educational asset for Wisconsin and for the world. And whereas nearly 100 years after the Wisconsin idea was conceived, UW-Madison continues to exert its positive influence on main streets across Wisconsin and globally through transformative outreach programs. And whereas the university has embarked on a bold new initiative to improve undergraduate education and provide critical need-based financial aid through its innovative Madison Initiative for undergraduates. And whereas UW-Madison conducts more than $900 million worth of research each year, contributing to the advance of the sciences, arts, and humanities, and enriching the state's economy and knowledge base. And whereas the UW-Madison continues to tackle urgent and complex problems, such as global health, energy, and climate change, often through interdisciplinary study and to advance cultural and social knowledge. And whereas UW-Madison prepares undergraduate and graduate students to think critically, to help solve today's problems, and to anticipate tomorrow's challenges. And whereas UW-Madison, with the help of generous friends and far-sighted partnerships with the state of Wisconsin, continues to build facilities that revitalize the campus, anticipate its needs, and provide learning, living, and working spaces that will serve Wisconsin for generations to come. And whereas the university was recently reaccredited following a site team visit in which members applauded, quote, this outstanding public research university for its range of significant accomplishments and progress and its continuing commitment to world-class education, research, and public engagement. Be it therefore resolved that the University of Wisconsin System Board of Regents hereby thanks Chancellor Biddy Martin, Provost Paul M. DeLuca, Jr., and all of their colleagues and students for advancing teaching, research, and outreach, and for generously extending the campus's hospitality and sharing their thought-provoking presentations as they hosted this December 2009 board meeting. On Wisconsin.
Thank you. I will assume that resolution also is approved by acclamation. Chancellor Martin, do you have anything more to add to this day?
I'm sure I've spoken enough today, but I would like to thank you for that beautiful resolution. Also, thank all of you for coming, and not only the Regents, but also chancellors, provosts, and others from the campuses. I got many emails and tweets, I guess they're called, last night from students saying how much they enjoyed the dinner and the opportunity to get to know Regents and also other chancellors. I'm just really grateful that you were willing to spend the time and make the effort. Thank you.
We will now move to, are there any communications, petitions, or memorials? Is there any unfinished or additional business? Regent Walsh.
Well, I just wanted to add something, and I didn't say much during the discussion on the tuition, but, you know, it's all about money, and we shouldn't forget some of the earlier battles we've had, and especially the success of the growth agenda and the collaborations with businesses and the public, which allowed us to persuade the legislature and the governor to continue to invest in this system. There's an election coming up, and while we all have our feelings about the elections, I would just urge everyone, this board and everyone in the room, to be engaged in the election and question the candidates about their views on access and affordability and quality of this great system, and the impacts of decisions made that either do or do not invest further in it. And I think it's our challenge and it's our responsibility to just make sure that this is a very big public debate about a big, important issue. And just to emphasize it, I am now a grandfather for the first time last month, and my daughter has written me and asked me if I'm going to make my EdVest contribution.
Could you share the name of your grandchild?
Charlie. It's not Chuck, it's Charlie.
Oh, it's in the family of names. Thank you, Regent Walsh. Any other unfinished or additional business? If not, we will take a 10-minute recess, which let's hope to make it exactly 10 minutes, and come back, and then we will move into closed session.